How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.
the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? Oh, I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. This is the final sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? Travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to get used by you. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to be out you.
Won't anybody help us? What are we running for? When there's nowhere we can run to anymore. We can't afford to be innocent. Stand up and face the enemy. It's a do or die situation. We will be invincible. And with the power of conviction, there is no sacrifice. It's a do or die situation. We will be invincible.
Who the fuck is Karlyn? She's just some sweet lady. She's like in a knitting. She does like a knitting stream. She's like a knitting YouTuber. She does knitting.
Can we grow up a little bit and
Alt
not
Girl
be
sent $200.
retarded?
Have you
Please.
seen the work of Karlyn Borysenko? Anti-commie cult leader and is obsessed with looking at what actual far-left communists are talking about and organizing today, infiltrating them. They infiltrated the universities, schools, media. She has the receipts to back it up. Primary source evidence. Infestation is dire and she calls Republicans idiots eating slop. Agree.
Thank you for the big super chat. Yeah, oh, I know Karlyn B. She's solid. She's funny. I
The
like
great
her.
noticer sent $200.
Literally.
So
not
it's,
Ian.
it's not because
Yeah.
I haven't dangled my junk into the combat zone on purpose to get some camera footage, but that's the big part of what's the
Is
problem.
that what you call reporting?
Go
and live
under, if
streaming?
you're going to do it,
Yeah,
go
seriously.
undercover. Otherwise you're wearing a hunk of meat in a lion's den. Nick Shirley, I love you. Take care of yourself, man. Karlyn Borysenko went undercover. Do stuff like that. Like if you want to expose this thing, don't pariah, please.
But Ian, here's and I, agree with you to an extent.
What's up, everyone? Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to The Cult. This is a show that I do Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on a whole bunch of different websites. Wherever you're watching me right now is fine. Although YouTube has the best chat, if you want to come over to YouTube, YouTube definitely has the best chat. But, you can be other places too. Let's actually put the chat on the screen. We got a couple super chats that have already come in. We got a member chat from Dan. Hail my queen. Hey, thank you, Dan. I appreciate that sentiment. And thank you for being a member of the channel. I really do appreciate that. And then we got David here with the cover charge. Listen, I think we need to make the cover charge a stream tradition, okay? I think we need to make the cover charge a thing that people do. When I'm teaching a class anyway, if I'm just screwing off and watching other people's content to laugh at them or to like make fun of them or something like that, you don't need to pay cover charge for that unless you want to. I mean, some people really like that sort of thing. So you're more than welcome to give me money to do that. I'm just saying that when I'm talking about things that are serious, when I'm talking about things that are consequential to the world, when I am spending hours upon hours breaking down far left ideology for free on the internet to everyone, if you want to throw in $5 at the door, that would be really great. If 20 of you throw in $5, that's $100. And then I feel like at least I've done something valuable and productive, and I'm not wasting my time doing hours and hours and hours of this stuff on the internet. And quite frankly, I think $100 for a several hour long stream where I'm giving you really good content and really good information, I think that that's actually pretty effing reasonable. If I'm honest about it, that's not very much money per hour. So if you wanna do that, that'd be great. Hey, look who just became a member of the channel. Mutant became a member of the channel. Thank you, Mutant. That's a really good option as well. Thank you. My book just got delivered. I hope you enjoy it. Gonna be writing more books. Still working. Oh, God, I cannot get my books done. I have like 3 different books I'm working on right now, including the fucking dictionary for the website. And I can't get anything done. It is impossible. But like things are starting to slow down for the year because now we're heading into Christmas. And I fully expect the rest of the year to be pretty effing quiet. And I'm just really hoping against hope that I'm able to at least accomplish one project by the end of the year. And I would like that project to be the Decode the Left dictionary, to get the dictionary online. The dictionary will help me finish the book that I'm writing on it and stuff like that. Reagan says I need to lock myself in a room without distraction and bang it out. I know. I need to see, the problem, Reagan, is Twitter. The problem is Twitter. I need to have a reality where I have access to the internet, but I don't have access to Twitter. Hey, thank you, Chicken Spawn. I talked you into it. Thank you for $5 at the door. Thank you, Weapons, for becoming a YouTube channel member. You guys are the best. You guys are the best. You guys keep me in business. I really do appreciate it. If I send a donation check to the Center of Left Wing Studies, will it be processed before year end? So I am not the one that does the processing for it. My fiscal sponsor does the processing for it, but I do believe so. I do believe there's still plenty of time, and especially if you date the check prior to year's end. I'm positive if you sent it now, it would absolutely get processed and go into the account for the Center for Left Wing Studies, which of course I really do appreciate as well. The Center for Left Wing Studies is going to be I'm really going to try to get an event series next year, and I would really like to do a conference as well, to be honest. And of course, we're still working on, archiving stuff and doing that as well. I've got so much data on my computer for the Center of Left Wing Studies right now. It's absolutely ridiculous. See, this is another thing. There's another thing why I don't get anything done. I'm overwhelmed with the amount of information that I have on my computer right now. Overwhelmed with the amount of information that I have. But you know what? It's all going to work itself out. It always does. Hey, thanks, Soul Quest. Happy 501. I do appreciate that. Well, guys, we've got some very important news to talk about today because just hours ago on their website... Hey, thanks for the cover charge, Juan. I do appreciate that. See, this is the spirit, guys. This is the spirit. I survive based on mutual aid. That means you guys give me money, and in return, I spend time researching the left on the internet for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours a day. What you guys are buying when you give me super chats and you give me cover charges, you're buying my time. Because that's time I can give to you and I can give to this project that I don't have to go and, do other things to earn money. That is what is being bought. And so I really do appreciate it. I have more information on the left than the fucking White House. So true. So true. Hi, I'm not actually, yeah, I'm serious. That's actually probably true. Anyway, breaking news, breaking news. Antifa through CrimeThink, which CrimeThink is basically the main publishing arm of Antifa. There are, of course, Antifa is a decentralized organization. There are many, many people who publish on the far left, but CrimeThink is one of those kind of central hubs that like a lot of Antifa activists read. And so we kind of position CrimeThink, which is nationwide. I've seen CrimeThink everywhere. Like I've been undercover, the West Coast, the East Coast. I've never been undercover in the Midwest. Maybe they're in the Midwest too. They probably are. But what I will say is CrimeThink is basically one of the main publishing arms of Antifa. If you see something on CrimeThink's website, that is going to materialize in the Antifa ecosystem at some point. So this is how the far left communicates as a decentralized organization. Thanks, old sub sailor. I appreciate you. Thank you, my friend. Antifa, of course, is a decentralized organization. Thank you, Suri Unlimited. I appreciate it. A tuition. I'll take that. Yeah, I'm going to be doing more shorts. Shorts are how I don't get shadow banned on YouTube, but they're fucking annoying. 3 minutes to talk? I only get 3 minutes to talk about something on a short. 3 minutes really cramps my style. Let me tell you what, but I'm doing my best to make those 3-minute videos because it's the only thing apparently people want to watch. But you know what? Whatever. This is actually a good point. So, Antifa is a highly decentralized organization. What that means is there is no hierarchy, there is no leadership. There are thousands of Antifa cells nationwide, many of which are, the vast majority of which are not called Antifa, that are kind of moving forward towards the same thing. So how do they accomplish that if they don't have hierarchy? Well, they have to have a way to communicate amongst themselves. And what tends to happen is, and I think this is a really good point to for people to understand, when something is published on CrimeThink or like a similar anarchist website, it's not because there's some evil mastermind at the top saying, here is what we do next, ha 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 ha, and then it gets published here and then marching orders go out. That's not what it is. What this website is publishing are ideas that are already being talked about in the ecosystem. So maybe this collective over in New York is talking about it, and this collective in Austin, Texas is talking about it, and this collective in Seattle is talking about it. And one day someone decides, and maybe they're even talking to each other because they do that. They talk to each other. The internet is a thing. Tim Pool seems to think Antifa needs a fax machine or someone needs to move to a city for them to talk to each other. No, the internet is a thing. There are anarchist ecosystems all over the internet where they talk to each other. Maybe they're even like communicating across different cities and stuff like that. It wouldn't surprise me, but someone at some point or a number of people decide to write an article that goes on to CrimeThink, and then that gets disseminated out further into the ecosystem. But the ideas start in the ecosystem. Yeah, this is a really great way to think about it, actually. I'm really glad you brought this up. It's like an aggregator for the ideas that are bubbling up in the ecosystem. So just like the far left wants a dictatorship of the proletariat, right? The ideas in the leftist communities bubble up from the bottom. There's no evil mastermind George Soros type figure on the left that's giving marching orders to all the different groups. That's not how it works. It bubbles up from the ground up. And it's a really important distinction for people to understand because it's completely different from the way the right wing operates. Todd, thank you for the super chat. I love your work you do. Please don't ever stop. Love the work you do. Please don't ever stop. Oh, I won't ever stop, Todd. I'm too stubborn for that. I do appreciate the super chat. Andre, Candace just called Tim Pool a bitch on X. Yeah, I saw that, actually. I was almost going to talk about Candace calling Tim Pool a bitch on X. I was like this close. But I was like, no, we're going to leave that alone. We're going to leave it alone. We're going to talk about things that are important today. Anyway, so what we're going to do is they have literally just released. This is a very long document. And I waited to read through it to get to the stream. This is an extremely long document where Antifa is basically doing kind of like an after action review from the past year. And then they're saying, here's what we're going to do next. This is extremely long. Okay? But this is the game plan. This is it. This is Antifa's game plan before the year ends to go into 2026. And make no mistake about it. I mean, we monitor this website. We know what they're publishing on this website. Antifa has not been deterred by the first year of Trump at all. If anything, Antifa is getting more emboldened by Trump. They believe that they need to get more aggressive. They believe they need to be out there doing more direct actions. And quite frankly, they're kind of winning. They're kind of winning. Yeah, it's really long, so that means there's no retardation allowed in the chat today, so we can get through it all. I don't want to be yelling and stuff like that. I really don't. We have important work to do. Well, this is the actual document, Pete. The document is on the screen right now. This is the actual document. This is the document that they're going to read. So yes, I did share the document. And I will put the link in the chat in a sec. I do have two quick things I want to talk about before we get started, though, just to let people kind of have some extra time to come in because, yeah, everyone get your debunks out of the way now. Go post them on Twitter or something like that. I do have two other things I want to talk about before we jump into this document and have a good old time reading it. And the first is, this is kind of random, but I'm just curious if anyone else has seen this guy. Has anyone else seen this guy on Instagram or TikTok, or I guess he has a YouTube channel too? Like, I started getting served this guy's videos on Instagram. And listen, my Instagram is my happy place. Instagram is where I see posts about royal things, or I see easy to make recipes for really good food that don't require very much effort, or I see things about pretty designer handbags because I really like nice designer handbags. But like I see things about handbags and stuff like that. And like Instagram is like my only place to be a girl on the internet. I know I post socialism content on the internet, but I don't really on Instagram rather, but I don't really engage in political content on Instagram. And then I started getting served the videos of a diagnosed psychopath commentating on public events and doing analysis on the psyches of major public figures, to include Erica Kirk and all that stuff. And he put out these videos on Donald Trump yesterday where I was like, oh, this guy fucking rules. This guy rules. And so I just wanted to know if anyone else had seen this guy. He goes by Jax the Ripper. And I'll play a little bit of his videos here. It's about like 6 minutes, I think, maybe not even that much, of him analyzing Donald Trump. And I just think he is so good, and his style of because he's a psychopath, right? Like, we have a replacement for HG Tudor. HG Tudor sucks. And HG Tudor became a massive pussy, and HG Tudor is completely cucked to Israel. And it was so disappointing because I used to love HG Tudor's content on narcissism. And HG Tudor is a diagnosed narcissistic psychopath, allegedly. I don't even know. But he's completely and totally cucked to Israel. And it's so sad and it's so pathetic. And now we have someone who actually puts their face on video, first of all, who has a really cool horror vibe and horror aesthetic, secondly, which I appreciate because I like macabre things and I like horror. I love horror movies. And so then we have this guy who also claims to be a diagnosed psychopath. Like, he is a psychopath, and he talks about being a psychopath and how he sees things and stuff like that. And it's fascinating. So we have found a replacement for HG Tudor, and he is so much more based and awesome and amazing than HG Tudor ever was. And I'm really excited about it. Anyway, listen.
All right, Donald Trump has to be the most textbook example of a psychopath of any celebrity I can think of. The only one that even comes close is like Logan Paul, probably, because that's super obvious. But Trump is like beyond obvious. There's a lot of diehard MAGA people that actually prove my point. If you don't think he's a psychopath, that's because you're a victim of his, with Stockholm syndrome at this point. It's not even like a political issue like you would think. It's more of a clinical issue. Like, if you think about it, we elected a fucking psychopath as the president, which I don't think that's the worst thing. I think it's kind of effective, honestly. People could disagree, but psychopaths get shit done. And before I go any further, I was totally down for Trump, even knowing he was a psychopath. I didn't really care too much. Again, I think it's obviously very effective. No one can deny that. It wasn't until this year when he just said, "Fuck you, Israel first." That's when I was like, okay. That's when I was like, ah.
That's when I saw, oh shit.
All right, Donald Trump has found, but I feel like very few people in the
Hang on. Where did he get to the Israel first bit? No! Where did he get to the Israel first bit? This sucks. Anyway, there it is. Okay, there it is. That, when I was watching that video last night, I was like, this guy, like, see, this is the psychopath that I needed in my internet experience. This is the HG Tudor is totally cucked to Israel, doesn't want to talk about Israel and all of this stuff, and wants to just pretend that Candace Owens is a narcissist and she's the problem and all that stuff. And Candace Owens is a narcissist, don't get it twisted. But like, I needed a psychopath that just was gonna go for the fucking jugular when it comes to Israel and the Jews and all that stuff, and I got it. And it's beautiful, and I love it. This guy is awesome. He's an upgrade for sure. Yeah. Continue playing. Twitter. Why isn't Twitter playing my video? Oh, I fucking hate Twitter videos now. I hate it.
All right, Donald Trump, psychopaths get shit done. And before I go any further, I was totally down for Trump, even knowing he was a psychopath. I didn't really care too much. Again, I think it's obviously very effective. No one can deny that. It wasn't until this year when he just said, fuck you, Israel first. That's when I was like, okay. That's when I was like, there it is. We got fucked. Not a debate. There's a lot of people clinging onto the life raft, but
yeah,
you got to have a room temperature IQ to think that we didn't get fucked dry by Trump.
Yep.
Obviously, a lot of people in media and shit have thrown this around, but I feel like very few people in the clinical world have pointed this out, made it clear, and like described what this is or what this amounts to. And what it amounts to is that our president is a full fucking blown flat out psychopath. And honestly, if you doubt it, I don't even know what to say to you. It's like, think of like the opening scene of American Psycho and then think of Trump. You've never seen him in anything other than a suit and a golf uniform. Think about that. You like think of what Trump looks like in a sweat outfit. Just imagine what it looks like when Trump goes to bed. Or this is a thing I like.
I think this is like such a good point. Like, we literally never see Trump have any sort of emotion at all. Trump is always in a suit or he's always playing golf. Like, we never see him like more casual than that. And so Trump is like, I mean, and if you think about this, like I never really thought about this before, but like, and by the way, I don't think like whatever. I don't hate Trump. I'm not trying to shit on Trump. I'm just saying that factually Trump has been doing this literally his entire fucking life.
To say, imagine them being humiliated. Can you even imagine Donald Trump being humiliated? If you can't imagine someone being humiliated, they're a psychopath. That means they've crafted such a perception in your brain that you can't even wrap your head around what their defeat even looks like. And that's simply because through various methods, we just do not allow it. It's all part of the perception, because one thing I understand as a psychopath is being good doesn't do anything for you. There's literally zero benefits to being a good person. The only benefits that come with it is being perceived as a good person. And you don't necessarily need to be good to be perceived as good. Even listing off textbook traits, listen to this: manipulativeness, emotional shallowness. And before I read these traits off, just think of when you've ever seen Trump show an emotion. He literally doesn't do it. Even when he smiles, it looks a little weird because it's like, oh shit, I don't see his teeth that much. I didn't realize his smile was that big. Or it just looks weird because it's not normal. And that's because he's actually robotic. And that's the only mode we ever see him in. And I suspect he never even goes out of that. We literally only have one version of Trump, and it's nobody knows more about. Like, tell me this isn't Trump. Manipulativeness, emotional shallowness, glibness, impulsivity, and remorselessness. And the thing that's important is not just with Trump, but with myself or any other psychopath. It's really not the isolated traits, because that could be everybody. You know, it's more about the traits occurring in combination. That's the thing. Like pathological lying is typical.
Again,
shameless.
like this is such a good point, and I think that this is something that I cannot fucking stand. Most of the people on the internet who talk about people that are narcissists or psychopaths or like whatever, they're diagnosing some sort of personality disorder, and then they go and they cherry pick one thing that a narcissist might do, and they cherry pick one thing that that person has done, and then they go, look, that's proof that they're a narcissist. I fucking hate that shit. And that is most of what happens on the internet with these armchair psychologists, where they're just like desperate for everyone except for them to be a narcissist because, like, whatever reason they need that type of validation. This guy just said, listen, it's not about this one trait here or this one trait there. It's about all of these traits existing together consistently over time. And so like that's a really nuanced kind of like perspective that you don't hear a lot when you're listening to people talk about like, you know, personality disorders and things like that.
Brazen liars who lie with contempt, even when
Hang on.
like pathological lying is typical. Shameless, brazen liars who lie with contempt, even when confronted with clear evidence of their lies, they remain unaccountable. Show remarkable shamelessness, and Trump exhibits all of these traits at the highest level. He'll look you dead in your face talking about fucking like drones or something, and he'll be like, nobody knows anything more about drones than I do. Quite frankly, it's the best you'll ever see. Not even China has the technology. They say they do. Probably not. That's literally it. It's like a beat. He kind of is like Hitler. He talks with a beat. And honestly, I find it fascinating. I don't fuck with Trump anymore because he's Israel first, not America first. Again, classic psychopath. He makes promises and he didn't deliver on fucking one of them. He's literally like, people forget this. He literally looked right at, we're going to build a giant wall. And like nothing happened. He's literally deported virtually nobody. He just makes a huge show out of like the 10,000 or 50,000 that he deports, if that. And then we're stuck with a shitload. So it's all an illusion. What he's actually doing is not anything. So I feel like these diehard MAGA people just need to dismount off his meat, because it's like, bro, are you being for real?
So
you think
real.
Trump is actually helping us?
Yeah.
Look at the difference from his first term and this one. Like, he knows this is the highest level of power he'll ever reach, and regardless, he's done in 3 years. That's why we're seeing this bold Israel first, not America first at all. And with the Epstein files, dude, I go as far as thinking, like, a lot of people say, oh, he's got to be in the files. He sure acts like he is, da da da. But it's like, I don't think Trump's dumb enough to have done anything like that. And to understand this, you have to go back to the beginning. He was mentored by Roy Cohn. If you don't know who Roy Cohn is, I don't know. He taught him the art of blackmail. So honestly, I don't think Trump would be dumb enough to do that, because he's very intelligent. That's one thing. Like, that's not even a debate. But what I think is that he has the fucking blackmail. I wouldn't be shocked if he was a full-blown, like, I think he's one of the ones benefiting from the blackmail.
Probably.
In which that would make sense. It's like, well, we can't see him being dumb enough to have got blackmailed. Like, he blackmailed other people his whole career, you know? But then he acts as if he doesn't want to let it go. And it's like, the only thing I could think would be like, because I'm holding my cards to my chest. Like, why would I fucking, like, oh, people think I was on the island, but I'm playing a bunch of people with this information. I just haven't heard anybody even suggest that that could be the case, but it would make a lot of sense, actually. I think he's one of the ones holding on to it. Because if you think out of the box, like, instead of just thinking like the basic thing, like, oh, he's in the files, it's like, he's also behaving like someone who has the files. Like, literally has them and is actively a part of the blackmail.
See, I think this is a really good point. Like, the incentive for Trump to release the Epstein files goes down considerably if he himself is the one that's like blackmailing people. Is it out of the realm of possibility? I don't know. Maybe.
Operation.
Maybe not.
Have y'all ever thought about that? Because I think that's what it is.
So anyway, I just wanted to show you guys this just in case you guys hadn't seen this guy. He goes by Jax the Ripper on IG, and I think he's on other platforms as well. This guy fucking rules. This guy is amazing. This guy is what I needed in my internet life. Listen, I love Nick Fuentes. You guys know I love Nick Fuentes. I love that kid. That kid is awesome. I know Nick Fuentes' position, though. I know what Nick is going to say. I'm no longer, and I hate to say this, I'm no longer surprised by things that Nick says. And I think that Nick, you know, and I'm thrilled for his rise. I think it is well deserved. I think he's awesome. But I needed a new person in my life that was talking on the internet that I could feel like, oh my God, this guy has like a refreshing take that I haven't heard before, and he's got this cool fucking horror vibe, and that's just awesome. So this guy rules. This guy is awesome, and you guys should all go follow him and watch his content and think about it, because it's also just really interesting and entertaining. So I wanted to show people that. I also wanted to show you guys, check this out. Check this out. I'm going to show it to you in person first. Does anyone know what this is? This is more relevant to Antifa than the segment I just did. Does anyone know what this is? Does anyone recognize this in the chat? If you recognize this in the chat, like, props to you. And I want to say thank you to Ray over on Rumble with a $5 Rumble rant. Cover charge pay, Dr. K. Have you checked out the video I put in your Discord of Federal Unions Network Zoom calls plotting to sabotage the administration? I have not, Ray, but I will certainly do that. Thank you for the reminder. What is this? Did Reagan get it? Reagan knows it. I fucking knew you were going to know what this is. This is an Antifa planner. Did you guys know that on the West Coast, although apparently you can get them out here as well, but I've never seen them out here. I have seen these in several bookstores all up and down the West Coast. I saw them in San Francisco in several bookstores. I saw them in Seattle in several bookstores. I saw them in Portland in several bookstores. I saw these at every anarchist book fair. I actually have 2 of these because I accidentally bought a second one, forgetting that I had already bought the first one. This is an Antifa planner. This is made by something called the Slingshot Collective. Reagan, do you know where the Slingshot Collective operates out of? If I can get this to focus. Oh, look, it's a product of Long Haul in Berkeley. It's the Long Haul Info Shop in Berkeley. That is where the Slingshot Collective is printing this stuff. Only a literal retard thinks this is a Trump bashing channel. Bro, are you smart enough to be here? Come on. Yeah, this is not a Trump bashing channel. This is a dumbass bashing channel. If you are not like, exactly. See, we like Loki. Loki totally gets the vibe we're going for. Okay, I'm very sorry, Wes. I need to put you in a timeout, bro. You're not acting like you're smart enough to be here. We're talking about Antifa right now, and you're bitching and complaining about a video I just watched. Get it together, bro. Get it fucking together. You got 5 minutes to think about it. If you come back and you still continue to be a little bitch in my chat, I'm gonna block you again. I'm gonna permanently ban you. Anyway, this is an annual planner put together by Antifa, and you can see it's actually a calendar. This is an Antifa planner. They've got this big calendar here, and then they've got all sorts of articles, and they've got book lists, and then they've got the actual planner, and the actual planner on every single day, it has like far left occasions and holidays so that everyone knows whatever leftist thing is happening at one time. But the big thing about this is, I'm just scrolling to the back. The big thing about this is, check this out. Check this out. It has a directory. It has a directory of all the different radical groups and locations, pages and pages and pages of a directory of radical groups located not only across the United States, but all over the world. And it's got some extra pages and stuff like that. If you want to see the list that they have, you can go to their website. That is slingshotcollective.com and click on Radical Contact List. And by the way, this is the 31st year they have been making this. For over 30 years, they have been printing this particular planner. Thank you, Ray, over on Rumble. Put them in the Deuces Corner, Dr. K. I will, Ray. Thank you. Check this out. They've got all their contacts online. So let's just click into a state. Let's go to the bustling metropolis of California. These are all updated to say, here are all the Antifa groups, the far left groups, the hangouts, the collectives, and blah-de-blah-de-blah. These are all the active ones. And then here are the defunct ones. Here are the ones that used to be active but are no longer active because they actually do keep track of this. Now, this is probably not a comprehensive list. Let's just go into Massachusetts. Here we go. Massachusetts, all over the place. It's not a comprehensive list, but it's like, this is a really good fucking start for mapping the modern left. And again, this is something that they sell these in bookstores. You know what's funny? Is I was looking through this last night, and I went to Vermont because, of course, I'm from Vermont originally. And I was like, just looking at the stuff that was in Vermont. And then I saw, oh my God, Black Sheep Books in Montpelier is a defunct space. Guys, I used to live in Montpelier 20 years ago. 20 effing years ago. How crazy is that? I lived in Montpelier, Vermont 20 years ago. I went to Black Sheep Books all the time. And so to see that, first of all, I didn't know that they closed, and that's very sad. But like, to see that this bookstore that I went to in my 20s all the time is on this radical anarchist list, and they probably always were radical anarchists, but I had no idea. I literally had no idea when I was going in that bookstore all the time that they were radical anarchists. And so that's a trip. So I just wanted to show you guys this. And listen, there's a lot of articles in this. There's one article in particular. I'm going to read a bunch of stuff out of this for different podcasts and things. But look, there's an article about how to perform your own abortion. This is a step-by-step guide about how to perform your own abortion. And there's other articles in it as well, and it comes in a variety of colors and styles and stuff like that. And so I guess I'm telling you guys that if you guys see this in a bookstore, if you guys see this out in the wild, because I've seen this all over the place in far left spaces, all over the place. If you guys see this, you're at a far left bookstore, and if you want to pick up a copy of it, you know, it's got all sorts of interesting stuff about the far left. I'm actually going to use this as a planner. I am actually going to use the far left planner and the far left calendar because it has all the important dates in it. Like literally, it has all the important dates of all of the far left activities. Like, come on, this is like perfect for me. So I wanted to show that to you guys. I've had it sitting around here for a while. I just hadn't gotten to it yet. This is by the Slingshot Collective. And if you want to see it for yourself, you can find them at slingshotcollective.org. And you can see, there it is. And they do a paper as well. They actually publish a radical newspaper. I actually have their newspaper. I got it when I was in San Francisco. And so they actually publish a very regular radical newspaper as well. And so this is another source of information. As though we needed more sources of information. It's like we have more sources of information than we can possibly use. But this is a really good one that I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of. Guys, we're about to get into the main part of our show today, but before we do that, I just want to remind people to head over to my Substack and make sure you subscribe. That is Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. This is my main content hub of the internet, and if you want to support the work I'm doing and keep me in business, because I am 100% funded by people like you, sign up on the Substack for $8 a month, $80 a year, and you can support the work I'm doing and keep me in business. I don't take any political money. I have no political masters. My only job is to show up and to tell you the truth and to show you receipts. I tried to infiltrate a No Kings and No Ice meeting in October, but they could tell by my facial expressions I didn't belong. Well, that's a you problem. Like, that is a you problem. Guys, listen, can I just be very blunt with you? First off, a No Kings meeting is not even a far left meeting. A No Kings meeting is a progressive meeting. It is not a far left meeting. So you didn't even go to the far left. And if you're going to go into a meeting and you're going to go, and you're going to make faces the whole time, that's something you need to work on. That shows a shocking lack of self-control. And how I would recommend working on it is to watch more of their content, to listen to more of their content. I mean, we literally train to do stuff like this, but it's just like, you can't, like, if you're going to be like so obstinate that you go in and you make, and you make noises, like, come on, can we grow up? Can we get it together? Like, you think it's so important to find out what they're doing that you just can't like resist going, like every time they say something you don't like. Grow up. Honestly, grow up. If you want to infiltrate, I think that's a good idea, but like, can we please take something a little bit more seriously than to not be able to control our facial expression? Like, literally all you have to do is sit there and not react and listen. That's all you have to do. And so I don't know, maybe work on that. I applaud the effort, but it's just like, it's like sometimes right wingers, man, I'm like, come on. Okay, well then that's retarded. Do you want to know why the left is winning and you're losing? Because you guys have no self-control. Well, then you should work on that. Have some self-control. My God. Oh. Hey, thanks. We love horror movies. You went to my hood in SF. It's a shithole, right? Yeah. Yeah, basically the Tenderloin. Yeah, it's kind of a shithole. Like literally, it's a shit. But you know what? It's you know what? I didn't feel like unsafe when I was there or anything. I appreciate the super chat. Anyway, if you guys want to support the work I'm doing, exposing the far left and decoding their language and stuff like this, sign up on the Substack, $8 a month, $80 a year. I really do appreciate it. Couple quick announcements. Number one, I recorded a really awesome interview with Kim Iverson right before this. So Kim Iverson obviously has a show on Rumble. She's an amazing commentator. I really do appreciate her. She's got such a unique kind of nuanced perspective. I recorded an interview with her a couple hours ago, and honestly, it was a really great interview. And she asked not only about the Turtle Island Liberation Front, but we talked just generally about the far left. She asked some really amazing questions, and she gave me the opportunity to talk about the far left and teach about the far left. And so that I think should be airing right now, but obviously I will put the clip out about it. And I want to encourage everyone to, you saw it, Sassy? Yeah, I really, really appreciated that talk with Kim. So that was great. The other thing, has anyone ever heard of This American Life? Does anyone know what I'm talking about, This American Life? This American Life is a show on NPR. And I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know why the front page of their website is a holiday gift giving guide. That's really effing boring, actually. So This American Life is on NPR, and basically, it's one of the shows that I actually used to like on NPR because I think they do a really good job of just telling the story of what's going on. Well, I used to work in an NPR member station. I worked in an NPR member station for a year and a half, and it sucked. It sucked so bad. But when I worked at NPR, I actually really did like This American Life. So, fun fact. Right before I went to Portland, a producer with This American Life reached out to me and said, Karlyn, I would like to talk to you in Portland. And so I was like, okay. Now, I wasn't her first choice to talk to, but she had tried to reach out to Nick Sorter. He didn't respond. She had tried to reach out to the more high profile people. They didn't respond. And so eventually she worked her way down and she got to me. And so one of the things that happened when I was in Portland that I never really talked about is that I basically took the This American Life producer on a little walk around outside of the Portland Ice facility, and I connected her with other influencers that were there, and I kind of gave her the lay of the land and gave my opinion. And I was really upfront with her. I was like, you better not fuck me over. I was like, you better report. I was actually I was like, Argh. I was like, but whatever. I kind of was like, I feel comfortable with what I said, so I don't think they can actually take anything out of context. Anyway, the episode with me is going to be airing on Friday. And I'm a little bit worried, and I'm a little bit scared, and I'm a little bit apprehensive about how they're going to cut this episode because she was there the first night that Tommy and that crew went to Chandler's house to basically wake him up in the middle of the night. Do you guys remember when I interviewed Chandler outside of his apartment? So she was there that night. And that's one of the reasons I was so apprehensive about the whole thing of Tommy and that whole MAGA crew going down to Chandler's house just to cause problems. She was standing right next to me there when that happened. And so I was watching all this unfold. I was like, this is going to come across horribly. So I guess we'll find out how it came across. So that episode of This American Life is going to be airing on Friday. I'm actually really excited. I just talked to their fact checker today. I know they're going to be talking about me in it. And apparently I'm positioned as some sort of tour guide where I was guiding her around the area and stuff like that, which is basically what happened. So that's cool. And so we will see how that goes, and everyone cross their fingers that it goes okay. But I am actually really excited about it. And I do hope she tells a good story. And I think there is a good story to tell about the Portland Ice facility. So I guess we'll see. Anyway, let's get to the main show, shall we? We are going to be analyzing Antifa's playbook for moving forward when it comes to the Trump administration. This again for people who just got here, and please mount the like button if you have not already. This is a document that was literally just released by Antifa's main publishing company, which is not company. They're not a company. Antifa's main publishing arm, I guess, because it's not a company. It's not for profit. They give all their stuff away for free. CrimeThink has released this on their website. This is a website that a lot of anarchists read. And so if you want to know what they're planning, what they're doing, what they've already done, you go to CrimeThink, and usually they have stuff on it. And we're going to be reading this whole document, and we're going to have AI read it for us, and we're going to commentate on it and break it down and stuff like that. This is called At the Turning of the Tide, How to Fight Our Way Out of the Trump Era. So this should be great. Let me get my little reader up. And hopefully this will work for us. Let me make this actually bigger so you guys can really see it. Not that. Okay. All right. Let's get this party started.
At the Turning of the Tide.
Worked.
How to Fight Our Way Out of the Trump Era. A year into the second Trump era, authoritarians are in control of the federal government, but they have yet to gain control of society at large. They have done tremendous harm, but their assault has hit a plateau, if not yet an impasse. They have to project strength at all times precisely because they are not invincible. It is finally possible to imagine how we might not only defeat them, but take advantage of the situation to make more profound changes than were thinkable before. Here, we revisit the structural forces behind Trump's return to power, review the events of 2025, and propose a strategy for how to fight our way out of the Trump era together. The more precarious a social order, the more violent force is required to preserve it, a rising tide that sinks all boats. The political crisis in the United States today is the consequence of economic processes that have been underway for generations. The rise of fascism is not a fluke brought about by the demagoguery of a single individual, but the logical outcome of profit-driven capitalism.
Oh, really? Antifa? Really? The rise of fascism is not about a single individual. The rise of fascism is not about Trump. The rise of fascism is the logical outcome of profit-driven capitalism. Golly gee, it's almost like Antifa believes that capitalism causes all problems. Antifa believes capitalism causes all oppression. Therefore, their goal is to overthrow capitalism. And when they say capitalism, they mean the United States government and the Constitution.
The neoliberal order paved the way for this by deepening the gulf between the rich and poor, militarizing policing in order to preserve those disparities, and creating a downwardly mobile population desperate for scapegoats. In a globalized economy, politicians cannot mitigate the impact of capitalism on their constituents without investors taking their business elsewhere. Consequently, left parties have consistently failed to deliver on their promises, while reactionary parties have pulled public policy and permissible discourse steadily to the right with centrists serving as a sort of ratchet preventing policy and discourse from shifting back. Underway for decades, wealth polarization has begun to produce qualitative shifts. In 2003, Bill Gates was considered the world's wealthiest man with roughly $40 billion to his name. In October 2025, Elon Musk's net worth reached $500 billion. Today, the world's 10 richest men control considerably more wealth than the poorest 3 billion people. When wealth becomes this unevenly distributed, the ruling class exerts so much power relative to the rest of the population that representative democracy changes character. A single man like Elon Musk can determine the outcome of an election by buying up communications platforms and bribing voters.
Okay, I just want to point something out because Chicken Spawn, I think, says something that a lot of people might identify with. Chicken Spawn says, I love capitalism, not because it's perfect, but because communists desperately oppose it. I hate communists, therefore I love capitalism. Listen, capitalism isn't a perfect system, and I don't actually think we do I don't think we do ourselves any favors if we hold capitalism up as necessarily the ideal. The point is, though, is that when I say capitalism or when Chicken Spawn says capitalism, we are not referencing the same thing that the left is saying when they say capitalism. The left believes that capitalism is explicitly private property ownership. They believe it's both an economic model and a cultural model. And so when the left is talking about capitalism, they're generally speaking talking about very different things than you're talking about or I'm talking about. And so it's really important to understand this. I think it's really kind of like a waste of effort and a waste of energy to get sucked into the conversation of, is capitalism good or is capitalism bad? I mean, capitalism is flawed, man. People are flawed, and that's the way it goes. But we need to focus in specifically on what the left means when they say capitalism, which might be different than what you mean or might be different than what most people in the chat would mean, and what and how that applies in this situation. Because even if we are not necessarily the biggest fans of capitalism, we might look at what the left is doing and saying, listen, capitalism isn't perfect, but what the left is proposing is really effing crazy and is never going to work ever. And it's the difference in the definition that matters. The definition is literally all that matters.
A single man like Elon, in such circumstances, it's not surprising to see toadies like Curtis Yarvin arguing that billionaires should have formal political supremacy to match their economic supremacy. The desire for a politician who would run the country like a business, which is to say, like a dictatorship, has always been an autocratic fantasy. Having become accustomed to authoritarianism in the economic sphere, an increasing number of people are prepared to accept it in the political sphere as well. This creates a feedback loop. The more inequality there is, the more popular authoritarianism becomes, as people from every political faction conclude that, being too weak to assert their interests themselves, they need a powerful champion to do so on their behalf. For over a century, democracy has functioned as the political counterpart to free market capitalism. Both promise social mobility to individuals while preserving the inequalities fundamental to monarchy and feudalism, the systems that preceded them. For a while, democracy served to temper the violence of the economy and the state, at least towards the comparatively privileged. But as economic and political disparities deepen, neither capitalism nor democracy function to stabilize the social order any longer. The economy has changed in other ways over the past half-century. For example, today's billionaires are increasingly accumulating their wealth through speculation. Whereas Henry Ford made his fortune by selling cars, Elon Musk assembled his mostly by benefiting from spikes in stock prices. Donald Trump and Musk are both hype men whose strategy is to ceaselessly scale up their promises, double or nothing, before anyone can evaluate the real outcome of their previous ventures. Like the cryptocurrency boom, this is a symptom of an era in which the rate of profit is declining, rendering speculation more profitable than old-fashioned commerce.
All right, let me just do a pause here. Hey, this is actually a good question to ask. Last off topic. If this Brown shooter does end up being the queer they them, I have that Brown University queer anti-capitalist liberation clips all lined up. Do you really? Do you really? Well, maybe we should just be releasing them anyway. Maybe we should just be releasing them anyway. Maybe can we talk about that in DMs, please? Can we maybe just start putting those out right now, please? That would be real nice. I appreciate you, Master Shake. Master Shake is like the backbone that holds this community together. We'd be totally lost without Master Shake. Master Shake and Reagan combined. Like, we must protect Master Shake and Reagan. Like, there are many other people that contribute as well. I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad, but I feel like the stuff that Master Shake and Reagan find collectively drive like everything. Yeah, release the files. Release the files. Exactly. All right, let's keep going. Look at this sign they have. I saw this sign in Seattle as well of Elon Musk. I saw this painted on a wall.
Like the capitalism is a fire that must continually consume resources in order to go on generating profits for the victors. Eventually, capitalists are compelled to treat the state itself as a site from which to extract profit rather than a means of stabilizing the terrain in which they compete. In an era of declining profits, capturing and pillaging the state becomes the ultimate gambit for a hype man.
Okay, I want to point this out. It seems like Antifa is not getting into any of their plans, but remember, This is the preamble of the document. Basically, what Antifa is doing, and this is actually a smart way to go about it, is they're framing the narrative for everyone. They're saying this is the overall mise en scène in which we find ourselves. Now, listen, I want to remind people that you don't need to agree with Antifa. I do not agree with Antifa. But what they are doing right now is they are showing you their world view. Bro, you need to stop talking. You really need to stop talking. This is the second time I've had to talk to you. We are not watching liberals. We don't watch liberals on this channel. This is the far left. If you think the far left and liberals are the same thing, your job right now is to literally shut the fuck up and listen to what's being said or to ask questions, but we don't want you stating your opinions. We don't care what your opinions are because if you think that we're watching liberals right now, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, okay? You're in my classroom right now. We need to establish a hierarchy. Anyway, what they're doing in this document is they're laying the groundwork for the narrative that they are going to be basically the talking points we're going to hear coming from the far left. So you can see, oh no, another retard conservative banned from my channel because you're not smart enough to be here. Oh no, bye bro, you're permanently banned in the chat. I should have banned you earlier, but I gave you another chance against my better judgment. Now you're gone. Thank you for helping us know the enemy. Hey, I do appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, when the enemy is telling you who they are, pay attention instead of having a hissy fit meltdown like the average conservative retard. Exactly. So they are telling us what their perspective is. They are telling us, here is how we are analyzing the situation. So that's why all this stuff is important. And this stuff is going to lead up to, here is how we see the world, and here is what we're going to do about it next.
In an era of declining profits, capturing and pillaging the state becomes the ultimate gambit for hype man. For decades, we heard about such things taking place in overseas autocracies Russia, Belarus, Turkey, Hungary. Neoliberal pundits like Thomas Friedman and Francis Fukuyama believed that these were less advanced societies that would eventually catch up to the West as the free market civilized them.
God
In fact,
damn it! I just poured a whole bunch of coffee down my fucking shirt. Don't mind me not being able to drink from a cup of coffee and poured it all over my chest. Thank God this shirt isn't white, is all I'm saying. Okay. I'm everything's better. Okay, my bad.
in fact, it was the European and North American democracies that were behind the times. Donald Trump and his henchmen studied the model that these authoritarian societies offered in order to import it to the United States. Again, this was not simply the initiative of a few malevolent individuals, but the consequence of structural developments. In the 1950s, the United States and the Soviet Union were able...
So I think what they're trying to do is I think that they're trying to set up the argument that we're in late-stage capitalism, and therefore, because we're in late-stage capitalism, the revolution could pop off at any moment. And the reason I say that is because that's just the line that I've heard a lot of different revolutionary groups take over the last couple years.
In the 1950s, the United States and the Soviet Union were able to subsidize social safety nets for their citizens, in part, thanks to outright resource extraction in the parts of the world that were on the receiving end of their imperialistic ventures. Following the collapse of the Soviet bloc, the world was divided into the wealthy consumer nations of the imperial core, where most citizens enjoyed the privileges of democracy, and the impoverished producer nations of the periphery, where the majority of people were treated as cheap labor and subjected to correspondingly repressive regimes. As economic disparities widen and life becomes more precarious in the imperial core, it should not be surprising that political liberties are eroding here as well, while forms of repression that were practiced overseas are brought home. Am Césaire termed the latter tendency the imperial boomerang. Fascist...
Oh, look, they've got Patriot Front. They've got a picture of Patriot Front marching. Excellent work, fascists. Great job.
But the transition to cutthroat capitalism, scorched earth policies, and rule by brute force entails risk for the ruling class, as we shall see. Barring world revolution, the crises inflicted by capitalism will continue to provoke social unrest until the emergence of some massive new mechanism of control or appeasement. In a global
So what they're saying here, again, this is what I was saying earlier when I said that they're going to make the argument that we're in late stage capitalism. What they're saying is, listen, capitalism is the thing that's causing all the problems. Capitalism is going to continue to create social unrest. Capitalism is going to continue to create destabilization. And the only thing that's going to stop the entire destabilization of society is to overthrow capitalism and implement something new. And remember, when they say capitalism, they mean the United States government, they mean the United States Constitution, and all of that stuff, because they believe that the United States government and the United States Constitution are built off of capitalism, and capitalism cannot exist as long as capitalism will exist as long as the US government and the Constitution both exist. Again, I said this earlier, capitalism to the left is not just an economic model, it is a cultural model. So you need to hinge into reality with what the left actually means. They're not talking about running a business. They're not talking about going into a store and buying stuff. They are talking about an entire cultural model.
In a globalized world, state structures are forced to impose and perpetuate these crises, but are increasingly powerless to mitigate the effects.
Yeah, so we have a retard conservative in the chat who says, I bet the left hasn't planned for AI. The left has been talking about AI for years. We don't cover it a lot on this channel, but I can go back literally years, and the left has been talking about AI. So yes, they have planned for AI. Yes, they are factoring it into their equation, and they actually started talking about AI way before most people on the right did. So nope, wrong. Underestimate the left, man. And like every time a conservative underestimates the left, I'm like, you have no idea how wrong you are, like literally.
In a globalized world, state structures are forced to impose and perpetuate these crises, but are increasingly powerless to mitigate the effects. This makes the state a sort of hot potato. Any party holds the reins at its own risk, as Morsi's downfall showed in Egypt. On the other hand, in moments of crisis, whoever is capable of effective action against the repressive forces of the state will accumulate popular credibility. The Ukrainian...
Okay. They've got a link there. This is a photo of a throne being thrown down the stairs. Trump 2.0. Okay.
Trump 2.0. Those who follow the rise of autocracy in Russia know what to expect when it takes hold. Everything looks more or less the same. The police go on policing. Landlords go on collecting rent. People go on showing up to work. The trend...
So they're telling you the things they want to get rid of. Police go on policing. They want to get rid of the police. Landlords go on collecting rent. They want to get rid of all private property, which definitely includes landlords and definitely includes rent. People go on showing up to work. They want to get rid of work, or what we think of as work. There is an entire anti-work movement on the left.
The transition takes place so smoothly because all the necessary elements of fascism were already present under democracy. Nonetheless, there are telltale signs. You see militarized state mercenaries in the streets more and more often, masked and heavily armed. Protest becomes progressively more difficult and dangerous, until the last protesters are arrested for standing alone holding blank pieces of paper. And sooner or later, once the security agencies have the internal situation under control, the regime goes to war, for fascism must always have an enemy to mobilize against. The second Trump administration represents an experiment in authoritarianism that has not occurred in the United States in living memory.
Wow.
This time around, Trump has control of practically the entire executive branch and the Supreme Court, as well as the backing of Silicon Valley. Yes, the United States was already built on white supremacy, patriarchy, and colonial violence, but those who do not want to update their analyses to reflect the new situation are simply in denial.
The United States was already built on white supremacy. That means capitalism. Patriarchy. That also means capitalism. And colonial violence. That also means capitalism. 3 words that all mean capitalism. For people who might be new, I'm going to break this down. Why are there 3 words that all mean capitalism? Because they are referring to different aspects of capitalism. Because remember, capitalism is an economic model and capitalism is a cultural model. There are many different aspects that uphold the economic model of capitalism. There are many different aspects that uphold the cultural model of capitalism. So when they're using different words, they are referring to different aspects of capitalism. It's not that they all mean capitalism in the same way. White supremacy means capitalism because it is a reference to the ownership of people as private property. The creation of what we think of as race was directly a result of what they believe. I'm explaining what they believe, not what I believe. Was the result of bringing slaves to the United States. The people who owned them were white. White meant people who did not work in the sun. It was a reference. White became a reference to people who owned property. Black became a reference to being owned, being oppressed, etc., etc. That's why when they're referring to whiteness, white supremacy, they're not actually talking about skin color. They're talking about the system that upholds capitalism. Systemic racism is the system that upholds racism. The system that upholds racism is capitalism. That's what they're talking about there. When it comes to the patriarchy, they believe that capitalism created the socially constructed categories of man and woman, put men in the workplace where they had all the money and all the power, women in the home where they had no money and no power and were basically under the foot of men. That is the patriarchy. The gender hierarchy created by capitalism is the patriarchy. Colonial violence, we talked about that yesterday. That's what the Turtle Island Liberation Front is about. That is the land back movement. Colonization, colonialism means privatizing indigenous land, stealing land from the indigenous people, and privatizing it under the oppressive force of capitalism. We have a conservative in the chat. You want to know how I know you're a conservative? Because you're obsessed with Muslims. How does socialism and communism fit with Islamic theocracy? Literally no one on the left cares about Islam. No one on the left cares about Islam. The only people who care about Islam, obsess about Islam, talk about Islam every day, let Islam and Muslim become a complete distraction from anything the left is doing, those are conservatives. We almost never hear the left talking about Islam. So my recommendation is to hinge into reality, stop being fucking obsessed with Muslims, and focus on what the left is actually saying. I think that would be a really good idea. Clip this, please. Yeah, I probably will.
Yes, the United States was already built on white supremacy, patriarchy, and colonial violence, but those who do not want to update their analyses to reflect the new situation are simply in denial. Gregory Bovino,
That's reading a photo caption. We're going to move on.
For the purposes of this analysis, we won't linger on the strategic.
And by the way, if you guys don't believe me that the left doesn't care about Islam, we're going to read this whole document. This is an extremely long document where the left is laying out their plans for basically 2026, their plans as they exist right now. I want you guys to keep track of how many times they mention Islam or Muslims. I want you to keep track of how many times they mention Jews or Israel. Because they may mention Israel, they're not going to mention Jews. They may reference Palestinians, but they're not going to do it by like really harping on Islam or Muslims or any of that, because they don't support Palestine because they're Muslims, and they don't hate Israel because they're Jewish. They dislike Israel because of colonial violence. Again, this is what the Turtle Island Liberation Front is about. Israel stealing the land from the indigenous Palestinians, privatizing it under the oppressive force of capitalism, yada, 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 yada. They hate America for exactly the same reason that they hate Israel, because it is all about stealing the land from the indigenous people. It is an oppressor versus oppressed narrative. That is all it is. It is not about Jews. It's not about fucking Muslims. The only people who are obsessed with Jews and Muslims are conservatives.
For the purposes of this analysis, we won't linger on the strategic frameworks and objectives driving different elements of the Trump Coalition of Heritage Foundation's unitary executive theory, intended to concentrate dictatorial power in Trump's hands. The Christian nationalist Seven Mountain Mandate aimed at gaining control over society at large. The counterinsurgency strategy that the military and police bring to bear upon protest movements and unruly communities. The Christian and Jewish Zionist efforts to use Palestine as a testing ground to establish genocide as a means of gentrification.
See, this is what they believe right here. This is what their problem with Israel is. The Christian and Jewish Zionist effort to use Palestine as a testing ground to establish genocide as a means of gentrification. What they're saying is Israel is trying to kill off the Palestinians to take that beautiful strip of land that's right on the beach in Gaza. That is what they're saying. They're saying they are using genocide, killing the Palestinians, starving the Palestinians, making it impossible for the Palestinians to stay in Gaza. They are using genocide as a means of stealing the land and then developing it again so that they can use the land exclusively to their own use, with excluding other people from using the land that was theirs. That's what they're saying.
The Christian and Jewish Zionist efforts to use Palestine as a testing ground to establish genocide as a means of gentrification. The Silicon Valley corporations and petroleum companies and cryptocurrency profiteers all seeking license to pillage with impunity. We will confine ourselves to identifying some of the regime's initial objectives: purge of federal bureaucracy and military of all officials not solely loyal to Donald Trump, purge the federal bureaucracy and military of trans people, Black women, and other suspect demographics. Suppress all programs promoting diversity and egalitarianism.
Notice they said diversity and egalitarianism, which basically means communism. If you want to send me a super chat, I will answer a hypothetical question for a super chat. Now, that's not to say you're going to like the answer that you get. But if you want to ask me a hypothetical question, send a super chat. It's rude to do otherwise.
Suppress all programs promoting diversity and egalitarianism. Consolidate power in the executive branch, both legally and in practice. Concentrate resources in the federal agencies proven to be most loyal to Trump, such as Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. Weaken and overwhelm the judiciary while using the Supreme Court to remove legal obstacles. Weaponize the Justice Department to use litigation to target adversaries. Subordinate or sideline the legislature. Abolish or defund all government-sponsored agencies not directly under Republican control. Subordinate universities in the field of education as a whole via lawsuits, withholding funding, and policy suppressing dissident perspectives. Suppress hostile media platforms via lawsuits, buyouts, and intimidation. Suppress, defund, or
So what they're doing right now is I want people to understand the context. Antifa is presenting us a list saying, here are all the things that the Trump administration is doing. But what they're actually doing is saying, here are all the things that we're really annoyed about and pissed off about. Because Antifa is not presenting a complete list of all the things the Trump administration is doing. And of course, they're taking this stuff out of context. They're twisting it to mean something it doesn't mean, whatever. What they're really telling us with this list is, here are our top things that Trump has done in the last year that we, Antifa, are annoyed about, and we are filing a grievance about our annoyance with those things. So the fact that Antifa thinks that Trump is subordinating universities in the field of education as a whole with lawsuits and blah, blah, blah. Now, Trump is doing a shitty job of that because the universities are more or less ignoring Trump's executive orders and doing what they were going to do anyway. But this tells us Antifa is really pissed off about the targeting of the universities. And there's a reason for that, because there are college professors who are Antifa.
Suppress, defund, or discredit all scientific institutions that could document or circulate unfavorable information, including medical research, weather forecasting, climate data, and environmental statistics. Enable administration leadership to cash in on political power via stock trading, cryptocurrencies, and other business schemes, and to extract wealth through state business alignment. Shift United States foreign policy towards transactional relationships, chiefly benefiting administration leadership. Geopolitically realign the United States with autocracies, supporting extreme right and fascist parties worldwide. Center white supremacy in foreign policy, for example, by curtailing refugee status except for white Afrikaners from South Africa. Appropriate the discourse of fighting anti-Semitism to serve a Christian nationalist agenda.
Oh, so true.
Gerrymander voting districts to ensure...
Actually, you know what? Like, unironically, the left has that wrong slightly. Appropriate the discourse of fighting anti-Semitism to serve a Christian nationalist agenda. It's to serve an agenda from Israel, idiots. If there is an intervention in Venezuela, do you think the lefty reaction is going to be the U.S. is committing a genocide against Venezuelans? No. Because I would tend to doubt that. I mean, if the U.S. goes in and starts doing what the Israel is doing, listen, Like, here is the reality. Do you want to know why people are saying that Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza? It's not because they're pushing a political talking point. It's because Israel is actually committing a genocide in Gaza. Like, we need to call a spade a spade. Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza, and that genocide is funded by the United States and our tax dollars. That is why they're saying that Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza, because it happens to be true. Now, if the United States does to Venezuela what Israel has done to Gaza, then yes, the left will say the U.S. is committing a genocide in Venezuela, because that would just be factually true. But if what the U.S. does, and by the way, I don't support any action in Venezuela. I'm completely anti-war. I don't care about other people. I don't care about other countries. I don't want us involved in any of this shit. If all Trump does, though, is go in and, basically assassinate Maduro or whatever, like he like initiates a regime change, is the left going to come out and say they're committing a genocide? No, because they wouldn't be committing a genocide. And there would be no use in lying. The left wouldn't have the videos to lie about it. We have videos of Israelis doing horrific things to Palestinians. We have videos of Israelis literally raping Palestinian prisoners. We have all of this shit is documented, what Israel is doing in Palestine. So if the left doesn't have the same types of videos of the U.S. blowing up kids and bombing buildings and all this chaos and starving people and all this stuff, they don't have any ground to stand on. So no, I find it hard to believe that they would take that route, because it just doesn't make any sense. Thanks for the super chat, though. I appreciate it.
Gerrymander voting districts to ensure one-party rule. Compel inter-party loyalty via intimidation, control of funds, and the threat of facing loyalists in primary elections. Normalize both corruption and presidential pardons, using these in tandem to subordinate politicians of all parties, as well as other powerful figures. Normalize military operations against civilian targets inside, as well as outside the United States. Establish military forces specifically focused on crushing civil unrest. Redirect the Department of Homeland Security, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, and other federal intelligence agencies to focus chiefly on targeting domestic.
Again, we're still continuing down with just the list of Antifa grievances with the Trump administration. It's a long list.
Redirect the Department of Homeland Security, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, and other federal intelligence agencies to focus chiefly on targeting domestic dissent. Diminish quality of life in areas considered hostile to the administration via economic disruption and targeted policing operations. Disrupt funding streams of political adversaries, including nonprofit organizations. Flood the zone. Dumbfound and distract adversaries by continuously pushing the envelope, for example, by threatening to annex Greenland and Canada. Instill fear in targeted communities and political adversaries. When the Nazis took control of Germany, their program of Gleichschaltung, an electrical metaphor for consolidation, swiftly did away with all other political parties and organizations. The Trump administration knew that if they attempted to accomplish something similar, they would provoke a backlash that they could not control. The above program represents the most they believed that they could get away with. Concentrating resources.
Okay. Then they've got pictures of some Border Patrol people in uniform.
At the close of 2025, the administration has fulfilled the majority of these objectives. Do they still have enough momentum to advance to the next stage of their operation?
Okay, now we're moving into what they believe Trump is going to do next.
The curtain rises. The first Trump administration opened with thousands of demonstrators taking the streets of Washington, D.C. in defiance, setting the precedent for 4 years of fierce resistance that ultimately resulted in Trump's departure from office. The second Trump administration opened with Proud Boys marching in the streets of D.C., where the anarchist Black Bloc had marched on January 20th, 2017. It was the Proud Boys' first appearance in the Capitol since the failed coup attempt of January 6th, 2021, for which Trump had just issued blanket pardons. Where were the anarchists and other protesters on January 20th, 2025? At the opening of Trump's second term, many people were paralyzed by the idea that any sort of resistance would only play into his hands. ahead of the tame protest that the Group 50501 organized for February.
Those are the No Kings people. These are progressive organizers. 55051 is a progressive group.
Ahead of the tame protest that the Group 50501 organized for February 5th, some panicky liberals speculated that it was a setup to declare martial law. Project 2025 outlines specific plans to use any mass protests as an excuse to deploy the military for domestic law enforcement, up to and including deploying deadly force. Today, it's easy to forget how many radicals bought into some version of that narrative. Trump and his...
So I want to make this really, really, really clear. What Antifa is saying is that the liberals in 5051, they call them panicky liberals in 5051. 5051 are the No Kings organizers. They work with Indivisible. They are progressives. They are not far leftists. They're saying the panicky individuals in 5051 put out this absurd idea that Trump is trying to use Project 2025 and mass protests as a plan to specifically deploy the military. And they're saying it's easy to forget how many far leftists, that's what they mean when they say radicals, bought into some version of this narrative. They're saying basically the liberals and the progressives put out this crazy idea based on Project 2025. And unfortunately, they managed to convince a lot of people who are far more left than them that it was true when it is not. Can you guys see how they're making fun of the liberals and the progressives? They're like basically shitting on them here.
Today, it's easy to forget how many radicals bought into some version of that narrative. Trump and his supporters appear to be an unstoppable force, something out of a nightmare. Hadn't we already spent 4 years risking everything to defeat them, only to see them rise from the dead even stronger? As they took over the state apparatus with every other political faction in disarray, the terror that they inspired was their chief asset. Fascism depends on the management of perceptions.
And then they got a picture of the Proud Boys here. Proud Boys and other fascists returned to the streets of Washington, D.C. on January 20th, 2025. Wow. Oh, the Proud Boys. Oh, the Proud Boys.
No more concessions. State capture is a type of systematic corruption whereby narrow interest groups take control of the institutions and processes through which public policy is made, directing public policy away from the public interest and instead shaping it to serve their own interests. Joel S. Hellman et al. Introduced the concept in the 1990s to describe patterns of behavior observed during the first decade of transition in parts of the former Soviet Union, FSU, and Eastern Europe. The captors of the state were business people, soon to be known as oligarchs, who purchased influence over policy formation through direct kickbacks or promises of favors, using personal connections to the individuals and parties holding political power. This framing of business as the captors of politics probably always overstated the separation between the two spheres. Elizabeth David Barrett, State Capture and Development, a conceptual framework. Elon Musk and his underlings immediately set about dismantling every part of the government that did not help them accumulate wealth or keep the citizenry in line.
So this is what they think Doge was about, guys. And Doge, I mean, in my opinion, Doge was a colossal failure. Like, Doge has now disappeared. It doesn't even exist anymore. What a colossal disappointment that whole thing was. Never went anywhere. Never did nothing. Elon Musk didn't even want to be involved anymore after a couple months. The whole thing went kaput. Elon Musk and his underlings immediately set about dismantling every part of government that did not help them accumulate wealth or keep the citizenry in line. That's what the far left believes that Doge was about. It was about dismantling the things that made Elon Musk and all the other oppressive capitalists wealthy.
The cuts they made have already resulted in hundreds of thousands of deaths without significantly reducing the federal budget. Government efficiency was beside the point. They were showing that...
Hey, Joseph, it doesn't fucking matter if it's true. It doesn't fucking matter. We are talking about what the left believes. It doesn't fucking matter what is true. This is their perception. This is how they're making decisions. This is going to tell us what they're going to do next. You going to them and saying, excuse me, Antifa, do you know that's not true? They do not care.
Government efficiency was beside the point. They were showing that a new era had arrived in which the state would represent new values. Anarchists that we are, We cannot help pointing out that if all these programs had been maintained by autonomous grassroots projects, it would have been impossible for a Sieg-Heiling fascist and his juvenile henchmen to dismantle them in a matter of months. Panning back to a longer time frame, we can understand state capture both as the process by which the institutions of the state supplant grassroots initiatives, rendering the public increasingly dependent upon the state, and the second phase of the process, during which people gain control of the state who see no utility in ensuring that it is perceived to function as a supposedly neutral arbiter or to play any broadly beneficial role whatsoever. But it is important to remember that the state actors who integrated those initiatives into the state in the first place, not just aid programs and Social Security, but also representative democracy itself, understood themselves to be making repressive concessions that were necessary to subdue social unrest. Musk and his colleagues are wagering that the technologies of repression or else apathy and despair have progressed so far that these concessions are no longer necessary. They are gambling that hard power is worth more than soft power. They would prefer that people live in terror of being murdered in a random naval strike than that people support U.S. foreign policy.
I think that this is leading to, again, they're still kind of setting the framework for how they view the world as a way to like set up what they intend to do next. I think that this is all leading to the mass general strike. That's kind of my read on this right now. It could go in a different direction, I suppose, but I think what they're trying to do is lay the groundwork for basically direct action against like Tesla and other major corporations and things like that. And this is to lay the groundwork for the mass general strike in 2028.
They would prefer that people live in terror of being murdered in a random naval strike than that people support U.S. foreign policy. To cite a recent example, Trump is assuming that the advantages he gained by pardoning Juan Orlando Hernandez, the corrupt former president of Honduras, who made millions of dollars flooding the United States with cocaine, are worth more than the credibility that he gives up by doing so in the midst of an apparent military campaign against narco-trafficking, in brazenly destroying every feature of the government that could preserve its perceived legitimacy in the eyes of a great part of the general public. They are taking a risk, perhaps a bigger risk than they understand. Demonstrators in Berlin.
And then they've got a Tesla protest here.
Less bread, more circuses. The poet Juvenal wrote that the people of ancient Rome were bribed with bread and circuses to accept the end of democracy and the establishment of the dictatorship known as the Roman Empire. The tried and true playbook to accustom people to autocracy is to meet their material needs while channeling their attention towards activities that substitute for self-determination. Donald Trump is trying to accomplish something more unusual. He aims to preside over the destruction of the last vestiges of the social safety net and the impoverishment of much of what remains of the middle class, while buying off his support base with entertainment alone. His administration has not bolstered the economy, but further destabilized it, as of intentionally rendering people more precarious, desperate, and exploitable. In return for this, we are supposed to content ourselves with watching the violent reality television game show of his presidency. Less bread, more circuses. Whatever far-right propaganda outlets claim, tariffs and crackdowns on immigrants will not improve the economic prospects of white U.S. citizens. Already, an impoverished...
By white, they mean capitalist.
Already, an impoverished U.S. working class was only kept appeased by the cheap consumer goods produced overseas by underpaid labor. It would only be possible to move those production operations to the U.S. if desperate American workers were compelled to work for even lower wages than they do today. Likewise, deporting those who have been forced to work the lowest paying jobs on the market will only make goods and services more expensive for everyone else. The real reason for the tariffs and the deportations is that there are mechanisms of autocracy. They offer ways to maximize the leverage that Donald Trump can exert on governments, corporations, and ordinary people from the Oval Office.
Okay, I want to point something out here for people who don't understand the left. Again, capitalism to the left is defined as private property ownership. What do you need to have tariffs and deportations? Borders. You cannot have tariffs without having borders. You cannot have deportations without having borders. Borders to the far left are a manifestation of capitalism. They are imaginary lines that goods and goods are allowed to cross. Like you can get stuff from China or Mexico or all this stuff. but people are not allowed to cross the borders because they are a manifestation of capitalism and they are exclusive. So that's what they mean when they say a mechanism of autocracy. They are talking about the border, which is representative of the capitalist system.
The real reason for the tariffs and the deportations is that they are mechanisms of autocracy. They offer ways to maximize the leverage that Donald Trump can exert on governments, corporations, and ordinary people from the Oval Office. The tariffs enable him to negotiate quid pro quo agreements with governments and corporations for his own benefit. The deportations build up a loyal paramilitary force tasked with attacking whoever he deems an internal enemy. Trump has been using antitrust mechanisms in the same way, along with the so-called Department of Justice and litigation in general. Likewise, cutting off funds to healthcare and education will not strengthen the United States as a political or economic force. It is solely intended to concentrate more power in Trump's hands, while leaving ordinary people occupied with the challenges of bare survival.
Okay, and then there's a picture that says, if it crosses the U.S. border illegally, it's our job to stop it. People, money, products, and ideas. And this is an image that apparently ICE put out. Hey, thanks, 2 ladies, for the 5 gifted channel memberships. Congrats to everyone who just got a channel membership from 2 ladies. I really do appreciate it, or a little mess. I'm so thrown off by the YouTube handles, but I do really appreciate that, bro. Thank you for your wonderful support.
Above all, the goal is to accustom the general population to suffering, both to others' suffering and to their own. This is the point of the extrajudicial killings in the Caribbean Sea and Eastern Pacific Ocean, of the gratuitously brutal arrests of Mahmoud Khalil and other green card holders, of Trump's efforts to weaponize the legal system. This explains why they commit their worst atrocities not in secret, but as media stunts. Again, rather than seeing this simply as the audacity of a few malevolent individuals, we should understand it as a response to structural factors. Previous generations of autocrats took care to channel resources towards the bread side of the bread and circus's formula. If today's autocrats do not, it is not because they are foolhardy, but because they are constrained by contemporary conditions. We should seek out the consequent fault lines and vulnerabilities. Round 1. By the opening of the second Trump era, the powerful grassroots movements that had clashed in 2020 had been tamped down on both sides. State repression likely played a role in this, the response to the coup attempt of January 6, 2021, the judicial persecution of the Stop Cop City movement, but nonetheless, the subsiding of these movements is one of the enigmas of our time. Had the entire population of the United States simply been reduced to digital spectatorship and isolation, many people expected that Trump's pardons would bring the Proud Boys and right-wing militias back in full force. It may be that many of those who would have joined them instead sought to join IC, or else waited on the institutions of the state to follow through on Trump's promises. But what became of the millions who had participated in the George Floyd uprising? The first unruly protests involving highway blockades and student walkouts took place in Los Angeles at the beginning of February. The first demonstrations at Tesla dealerships followed later that month. Through the spring, older middle-class liberals were arguably the demographic most represented in protest activity. This illustrates the extent to which Trump's return to power was facilitated by widespread disenchantment and disaffection. Practically every other segment of society had already been reduced to cynicism. Comfortable liberals were the only ones who still had something to lose, the idea that they lived in a democracy.
So what they're saying is basically at the beginning of the new Trump administration, at the beginning of 2025, people were kind of not showing up. They're kind of bemoaning the fact that they're like, okay, maybe some people did something. Students did walkouts, the Tesla protests started, but they're really bemoaning the fact that like no one on kind of either side was showing up. And they're kind of asking, is the entire landscape just taking place online at this point?
However tame the participants, the Tesla protests had an impact. Weekly protests at Tesla outlets across the country, supplemented by vandalism and arson, contributed to a steady decline in overvalued Tesla stock. On March 10th, it plunged 15%. The next day, Trump staged a Tesla commercial at the White House in return for another $100 million from Musk. Tesla stock rebounded, but the stunt showed that the protests were taking effect. It may also have put additional strain on their relationship. One of the first signs.
And by the way, if people haven't figured it out, this is Antifa basically taking credit for all of this stuff. They're laying out, here are the things we did, here are the direct actions we did, and here's what worked.
One of the first signs of the Trump machine was not unstoppable came on April 1st, when Elon Musk's preferred candidate for the Wisconsin Supreme Court lost the election, despite Musk pouring over $25 million into the campaign. The next day, Trump announces tariffs, a clumsy effort to reset U.S. trade policies to the year 1930, likely not what transnational capitalists like Elon Musk had in mind when they backed him. The Tesla protests had not subsided. On April 22nd, Musk told anxious Tesla investors that he would shift his attention away from Washington, D.C. On May 27th, the same day that San Diego locals clashed with immigration and customs enforcement agents in one of the first publicized instances of resistance, Musk criticized Trump's big, beautiful bill. Trump hosted a send-off for Musk on May 30th, the last day the two were able to maintain the appearance of being on good terms.
So now we're leading up to June, and I want to remind everyone that June was when conservatives and the right wing started paying attention to the left, because June is when all the initial rioting kicked off. But what I want people to see is June just didn't come out of nowhere. June was the progression and the buildup that had been happening all year long. The left may have gotten out to a slow start, but they just kept building and they just kept doing protests and they just kept doing direct actions. And then all of a sudden, boom! But it didn't start in June. It didn't start in May. It started in January. And they just slowly kept building and gaining momentum. Hey, thanks for the $10 super chat. Random question. First I heard of Proud Boys was on Robert Evans' Behind the Bastards. Do you have any opinion on where it could happen here? Got things right or wrong? Which factions were involved? Listen, I don't have any opinion on the Proud Boys, other than I think Enrique Tarrio is a massive, 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 massive pussy. And the Proud Boys should be ashamed to be affiliated with Enrique Tarrio, if he's even still affiliated. I don't even know if he is. I have a hard time understanding why they're still affiliating with him, because he's a massive pussy. And that's really the extent of my opinion on the Proud Boys. But I appreciate the super chat. Thank you.
On June 3rd, locals in Minneapolis drove IC out of a neighborhood. The next day, people confronted IC agents as they carried out raids in Chicago and Grand Rapids. On June 5th, the feud between Elon Musk.
Okay, no. Like, John, it's like you just didn't listen to a word that I had said. It's like conservatives only hear the words that they want to hear. John, literally what I just said is the left was protesting and organizing since January. And so for you to come in, like literally right after I said it, for you to come in the chat and say, listen, June is when it got warm out, and that's why they came out to protest in June. No, John, you are not listening to what is being said. I am begging of you to fucking listen to what is being said. The left was protesting in May. The left was protesting in April. The left was protesting in March. The left was protesting in February. The left was protesting in January. It's just that the numbers continued to grow. So it is not as though they all just came out in June when it got warm. That it was the buildup and the momentum that they created by literally organizing all year long. You dismiss them when you say, well, it was just warm out and that's why they did it, because they had no other reason to do it. No, they had been organizing and working towards it for months leading up to that. That is why it happened. Can we please hinge back into reality?
On June 5th, the feud between Elon Musk and Donald Trump exploded into the public, with Musk announcing that Trump was in the Epstein files and suggesting that Trump should be impeached a third time. Early in the second Trump administration, some had speculated that capitalists like Elon Musk were the true powers behind the throne and would prove more powerful than Trump. Yet looking at the example of Russia, we see that Vladimir Putin successfully used the instruments of the state to crush every rival, however wealthy. Thus far, Musk has played a far weaker hand than Trump. So long as the state determines the conditions that prevail in a market and retains a monopoly on violent force, control of the state is the currency of power that trumps all others. The very next day, Friday, June 6, people in Los Angeles responded to an IC raid, precipitating days of fierce unrest. Trump deployed National Guard to LA, fulfilling the fears of those who had claimed that violent protest was exactly what he wanted. However, the protest did not die down when the National Guard arrived in Los Angeles. On the contrary, they continued, inspiring solidarity demonstrations around the country, the first wave of confrontational demonstrations since Trump had taken office.
And then they've got a picture here with a Waymo car saying, fuck ICE. Those Waymo cars are weird. They've got all sorts of graffiti, people in black bloc.
Demonstrators in Los Angeles, June 2025. The No Kings protests were scheduled for June 14th, the day that Trump had arranged a military parade in Washington, D.C.
I want to make sure people understand as well. Antifa was not involved with the planning and the organization of the No Kings protest. The No Kings protest, hang on, the No Kings protest was organized by progressive groups and by 5051. Antifa was not involved in the coordination of those protests. However, it's not as though they're obviously going to take advantage of these big events. If there's a big crowd, Antifa's going to be in it handing stuff out, and they were, but they were not involved in the organization of it. And we need to be very clear about that. These are two very different groups.
The No Kings protests were scheduled for June 14th, the day that Trump had arranged a military parade in Washington, D.C. for his birthday, with the National Guard on the streets. Some fear that the day would herald the
Hang on, we got a question over on Rumble from Baba. Would it be right to say the radical left had been protesting all year, then the left joined when Pride started to kick off? Well, no, that wouldn't be accurate either. The left was protesting and organizing all year, guys. The left was literally protesting and organizing all year. The No Kings protest in June was not the first protest that they held. They held even these progressive groups. The progressive groups held protests in February. They held protests, I'm pretty sure, in April. They held protests in May. They were holding protests as well. So the progressive groups were protesting, like Indivisible and that sort of thing. The far left was also organizing. But what you guys need to understand is when you are organizing, millions of people don't just show up overnight. When you are organizing, you build momentum slowly by getting more and more people to come to each event. So no, it is not accurate to say this all just kicked off because of Pride in June. They had been building this all year. Yeah, just because the conservatives didn't cover it doesn't mean it wasn't happening. Exactly. Yo! You're donating $1,000 to the Center for Left-Wing Studies? Everyone give JR a round of W's in the chat. That is a tax-deductible $1,000 donation, JR. I will make sure that gets processed for you. Please look for it. I absolutely will. Thank you. Thank you. What wonderful support. Thank you so much for that. That's a beautiful gift, bro. Thank you. W's for JR in the chat. Let's just assume it's true, okay? Listen, he was asking the right questions earlier. Let's just assume it's true. That's awesome. I will definitely put that money to very good use. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for the support. I think that's the biggest single donation I've gotten yet to the Center for Left-Wing Studies. How fucking cool! How cool is that?
with the National Guard on the streets. Some fear that the day would herald the beginning of military rule. June 14th began with a Trump supporter shooting multiple Democratic politicians in Minnesota. Nonetheless, over 5 million people turned out to demonstrations in thousands of different locations. Just as in May 2020, militant confrontations preceded mass protests. Rather than frightening people away, they drew out more people, driving home the urgency of the situation and wresting the news cycle from Trump's control. By contrast, only a few thousand spectators attended Trump's military parade. In the history of the second Trump administration, the first chapter concludes with the protests of June 14th. Until that day, it wasn't clear how much popular support there was for resistance, nor how little enthusiasm there was for Trump's desire to turn the military against the public, nor what would happen if people took the streets. Round two.
So what they're saying is, listen, we were a little bit nervous because no one was going out and doing nothing. And it's not as though no one was doing anything. I'm being a little bit hyperbolic. But what Antifa is basically saying here is we were organizing all year. We didn't see the response or the pushback to the evil fascists. There weren't as many people protesting as there were in 2016. So Antifa at this point is kind of like freaking out a little bit. They're like, oh my God, can we even get enough resistance to the evil fascist in order to like make a difference, right? And then the No Kings protest happened in June, and that was absolutely massive. At that point, it was like the largest single day protest in American history. And so when the No Kings protest happened in June and they saw so many people coming out, even if they were progressives and liberals, they were like, yes, this is the turning point. We now know that there is a popular movement. We've created a popular movement through ongoing organizing to be able to get enough people out to actually make a difference. So now they're starting to feel emboldened. The first half of the year maybe wasn't Antifa's best time, even though I told you guys they were organizing the entire time. But like really the confirmation, the validation that they were on the right track came on June 14th with the No Kings protest. Now we're into round two.
Round two, Reichstag fires. Of course, ICE did not leave Los Angeles. A protracted war of attrition followed, in which ICE mercenaries recycled tactics that they had previously employed for neo-Nazi street demonstrations. At the same time, local organizers developed a playbook to track their movements, force them out of hotels, and equip rapid response networks to resist them. On July 4th, a shooting took place during a demonstration at the Prairieland Detention Center south of Fort Worth, Texas. The police ultimately arrested 18 people, charging them with an array of crimes, including transporting Antifa materials. The Trump administration...
Those are zines, by the way. When they say transporting Antifa materials, they're referring to zines.
The police ultimately arrested 18 people, charging them with an array of crimes, including transporting Antifa materials. The Trump administration hailed this as the first legal case against Antifa, aiming to set a precedent for criminalizing protest in general. The case is ongoing. At the beginning of August, a teenager who had worked alongside Elon Musk to dismantle the U.S. Agency for International Development claimed that he had been assaulted in downtown Washington, D.C. Musk had originally hired him to work at Neuralink. Barely out of high school by August, this boy had already worked inside the State Department, the Department of Homeland Security, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the Transportation Security Administration, and the Social Security Administration. This resume speaks volumes about what kind of expertise and security can be found in federal agencies under Donald Trump. Trump used this opportunity to deploy the National Guard to Washington, D.C. Yet the presence of guardsmen in D.C. did not suppress expressions of dissent. If anything, it had a demystifying effect, showing that putting the military on the streets could not serve consolidate control while spurring grand juries to openly defy prosecutors.
So they're talking about the National Guard being deployed to D.C., and then they show a picture again of Patriot Front. Oh, look at this. Oh, look at this. They're saying that Border Patrol and the police use the same tactics as Patriot Front by saying, look, they're all in moving trucks. Okay. All right.
On September 10th, racist propagandist Charlie Kirk was shot while promoting Trump's agenda at university in Utah. Although the young man who killed Kirk had himself grown up in a conservative family, Trump and his supporters jumped at the chance to call for a crackdown on the left, with one Trump supporter declaring without irony that the shooting of Charlie Kirk was the American Reichstag fire. For the first time since Trump entered office, grassroots fascist groups around the country held public demonstrations.
Okay, hang on. What are they saying here with this? I just want to take a look real quick at what they're saying in terms of like... They're linking to a post on Blue Sky that doesn't seem to have an attribution. Okay. They're not providing any evidence for their claims. I was curious about the links they included. Yo, Seawolf with the 5 gifted channel memberships. Thanks so much, Seawolf, for that. I really appreciate the support. Congrats to everyone who got a channel membership. I do appreciate it very much, Seawolf. Thank you.
Racist propagandist.
No.
With one Trump supporter declaring without irony that the shooting of Charlie Kirk was the American Reichstag fire. For the first time since Trump entered office, grassroots fascist groups around the country held public demonstrations. Point 6. Centrists provided cover for Trump and his supporters by joining the chorus of Republicans who treated Kirk's death as a more significant tragedy than the tens of thousands of fatalities caused by gun violence in the U.S. every year, including the Democratic politicians assassinated 3 months earlier. Whether they were motivated by fear or genuine concern for human life, dubious, in view of their silence about the genocide in Gaza, the consequence was to give the Trump administration and its supporters a free hand.
So what did they say here? They're saying it wasn't just the evil Trump supporters that were bemoaning Charlie Kirk's assassination. Centrists provided cover for Trump and his supporters. Remember, these are not moderate people. These are not Democrats. These are not progressives. These are not liberals. These are socialists and communists. And they're basically saying it was the centrists that provided the cover that Trump needed in order to be able to continue to enact his fascist agenda.
Trump and his henchmen are hastening into fascism as fast as they can. They have already scripted the scenes in advance. There is no such thing as giving them an excuse to crack down. They're determined to make use of whatever opportunities arise, however far-fetched. The important question is whether others will enable them to do so. The burning of the Reichstag in February 1933 enabled the Nazis to consolidate power in Germany only because other political factions responded to it by granting the Nazis emergency powers. The way to stop a Reichstag fire is not to attempt to control those who act in response to the violence of the state, but rather to refuse to legitimize fascist initiatives or narratives under any circumstances. Anything else is complicity, pure and simple.
And then they've got a picture with a whole bunch of Turning Point USA signs.
On September 17th, Trump announced that he was designating Antifa as a major terrorist organization.
Aha!
Satisfied with the progress of the initial phase of their program first, they came for the immigrants. The Trump administration was moving on to the next stage. Then they came for the anti-fascists.
Oh, no. Antifa is painting themselves as the poor, oppressed anti-fascists who are being targeted exactly like the immigrants are targeted under the evil. Yeah, you guys are really oppressed, Antifa. You guys are oppressed for real.
They came for the immigrants. The Trump administration was moving on to the next stage. Then they came for the anti-fascists. A government doesn't announce that it has embraced fascism. It simply declares anti-fascists to be enemies of the state. On September 21st, nearly 100,000 people packed into a stadium in Arizona for a Trump rally billed as a memorial service for Charlie Kirk. Stephen Miller's speech channeled Nazi propagandist Joseph Goebbels. Trump and Musk were seen together for the first time since May. Presenting themselves as victims enabled Trump and his supporters to regain momentum after the reversals of June. Fascists must appear to be both Übermensch and underdog. This propulsive contradiction lies at the core of their project. National Guardsmen.
Yo! I'm not exactly sure how to say your name, but I'm just going to call you Wolf. Thank you for the 5 gifted channel memberships, Wolf. Another person gifting 5 channel memberships. You guys have all become Cynthia today, and that's awesome. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. I really do appreciate it. Congrats to everyone who got a gifted channel membership. Yeah, this is like a end of year address, but they're going to get into their plans at the end of it. So basically they're laying out the groundwork for everything and saying, here is how far we've come in the last year, and here's the things we accomplished, and here are the important milestone events. I know this is a long document, guys, but like, Antifa is laying out their worldview for us. We have to read these things, and we have to take the time with it.
National Guardsmen were still occupying the streets of Los Angeles and Washington, D.C. Trump had announced that he would deploy the National Guard to Chicago, where a massive IC operation was underway, and to Portland, Oregon as well. On September 30th, he convened U.S. military officials from around the world to instruct them to use American cities as training grounds. On October
And then
8th,
they've got a picture of a whole bunch of people in uniform.
On October 8th, Trump hosted a panel of far-right grifters whose business model was to spread fear and lies about anti-fascists. One guest, Jack Posobiec, explicitly stated to the approval of Trump and his cronies that Antifa originated in the Weimar Republic, making it clear for all to see that the administration considered those who resisted the rise of Adolf Hitler to be its foes.
Jack Posobiec
It was a
mentioned.
frightening moment to be an opponent of fascism. Hundreds of people had lost their jobs for not responding to Charlie Kirk's death to the satisfaction of their employers. The Turning Point organization was targeting one professor after another for suspension.
Mark Bray mentioned, yo, Beats. Thank you for the 10 gifted channel membership, Beats. I really do appreciate it. Congrats to everyone who got a channel membership. Beats showing up today. Thank you for the support, my friend.
Hundreds of people. Mark Bray, author of Antifa, the Anti-Fascist Handbook, fled the country. The anti-fascist media platforms going down shut down.
No shit. I didn't realize they shut down. Well, I guess I haven't heard anything from them lately. I didn't realize they shut down. Holy shit. It's Going Down was one of the very first people to block me on Blue Sky. Wow. I didn't realize that. About a year ago, we announced a hiatus of this project due to an outpouring of support. We pushed ourselves to continue over the last year, doing interviews, blah, blah, blah. But the events in the United States continue to escalate. The conditions have grown more dire. It's clearer that It's Going Down does not have the capacity to meet the moment as a hub for grassroots reporting and journalism. Boo! I guess I missed it. And I hadn't heard anything from them in a while, so I just kind of assumed that, like, nothing was going on. But, like, wow, but they did give us a nice little list of other places we should follow, so that's good. That's crazy. It was definitely in a group chat. Probably. Listen. I can't follow everything you guys send to every fucking group chat. I miss things sometimes too.
Shut down. In such a situation, it is tempting to withdraw from proactive efforts to focus on preparing for repression, but doing so sees the initiative to the authorities, permitting them to continue to gain momentum. The Trump administration was preparing the next phase of its assault. How far would it go and how fast? The tide turns.
And then an ICE agent, a picture of an ICE agent pointing a gun at the camera.
The tide turns. Ahead of the October 18th reprise of the No Kings protests, Trump and his underlings described the participants as Hamas supporters, Antifa, and paid protesters representing the terrorist wing of the Democratic Party, a small but very violent and vocal group. This apparently did not deter anyone from participating. Exceeding expectations, nearly 7 million people turned out for the October protests, considerably more than in June. While the demonstrations themselves were mostly state events controlled by local Democrats, they drew out a wide range of people, some of whom were eager to engage in more concrete protest activity, especially in places where IC was active.
When they're saying more concrete protest activity, they mean going beyond just going out for a No Kings protest and hanging out for a day. They're talking about more buy-in to doing direct action on behalf of the left.
Trump's National Guard deployments were hitting legal obstacles around the country. He called off a threatened troop deployment to San Francisco at the last minute. Resistance to IC operations continued in Chicago and elsewhere around the country, fostering new grassroots networks and tactics. The election results of November 4th showed that, far from building a consensus in favor of their rule, the Republican Party was losing support. The hot potato had changed hands again. Voters who had cast protest votes against Biden now blamed Trump for the economy. In electing Zohar Mamdani mayor of New York City, voters rebuffed centrist Democrats who had, yet again, argued that Trump's victory indicated that Democratic policies had to shift even further to the right. Mamdani's victory also gave Trump an additional adversary track, drawing his attention from Antifa to other threats.
And that's actually a really good point. Mandami was a complete effing distraction from Antifa in regards to the Trump administration. I hadn't thought about that.
In the wake of the elections, new rifts became visible within the Republican Party. The so-called Anti-Semitism Task Force of the Heritage Foundation resigned in response to the foundation's president defending extreme right podcaster Tucker Carlson
Yeah,
for
extreme right. Tucker
platforming an
Carlson,
avowed
okay.
anti-Semite.
Nick
Zionist Jews
Fuentes!
who would partner with Christian nationalists for the sake of exterminating Palestinians likely already understood that this coalition included people who wanted to exterminate Jews as well. But by November, it was clear that Jewish Zionists were not the ones in the driver's seat, and the prospect of electoral losses diminished their incentive to put up with the situation for the sake of retaining power. Marjorie Taylor Greene was forced to resign from Congress after clashing with Donald Trump over his unwillingness to release the Epstein files, saying, "I refuse to be a battered wife, hoping it all goes away and gets better," although her withdrawal from office suggests restiveness among some elements of Trump's base. It confirms that Donald Trump
Antifa are always revolutionary, always. The question was, do you know if the authors are reformist or revolutionary? Always revolutionary.
It confirms that Donald Trump continues to wield the power of life and death over Republican politicians to consolidate the sort of control over the United States government that Vladimir Putin, Viktor Orban, and Recep Tayyip Erdogan established over Russia, Hungary, and Turkey. Trump must show that he can sacrifice even his staunchest allies. All successful autocracies involve this sort of farcical infighting and jockeying for position. They don't call it competitive authoritarianism for nothing. In a polarized political climate, such fractures are unlikely to turn a significant element of Trump's base against him, but they illustrate why Trump has to project strength at all times. Trump supporters have debased themselves for the sake of his cult avowing falsehoods, excusing atrocities, enduring cognitive dissonance. The moment of the rewards for doing so dry up, there will be hell to pay.
Cool. And then there's a picture of a courthouse.
Bitcoin had spiked when Trump took office, ahead of his promised deregulation of cryptocurrency. It peaked immediately before the White House panel spreading fear about Antifa. In November, however, it plunged, shedding almost a third of its value. At the same time, there were murmurings that the artificial intelligence investment bubble could burst, tanking the stock market. Some Republicans likely feared that Trump's tariffs and general recklessness could contribute to an economic crisis. This may have diminished their eagerness to be counted among his most obsequious supporters. On November 26, 2 National Guardsmen were shot in Washington, D.C. by a disaffected Afghani war veteran. Trump once again...
I just want to make a note. It's not they don't reference Muslims or Islam here. They're stating factually he was an Afghani. This is to the question we started at the very beginning to say, like, you know, how does the far left treat Muslims? They don't even mention it. Sometimes when you're analyzing the far left, guys, like a good rule of thumb, and again, I'm saying this for people who might be new to like this type of content. If you believe the far left cares about something, ask yourself, how many times do you actually see them talking about that thing? Do they write books about that thing? Do they do presentations about that thing? Do they post on social media about that thing? Because if you look for information about how the left feels about Muslims and Islam, thinking that they want to lift up Muslims and Islam is the greatest thing ever, the left pretty much never talks about Muslims and Islam, like almost never. And even when they are talking about Muslim people, they don't even reference the term Muslim. So it's kind of like, do they really care about it? Or is that a conservative right-wing perception? The same is true with degrowth. A lot of people ask me, and of course, this is completely different than the WEF stuff. The radical revolutionary far left is completely different than the WEF. But a lot of people have asked me, like, how the left feels about like degrowth strategies and stuff like that. They almost never talk about it. There's like one guy. There is one singular guy on the radical revolutionary far left who does talk about it, who does presentations about it, who has written one book about it. But if you look at the far left in general, there's like pretty much no one else talking about it. It's not like with Abolish the Family stuff. With Abolish the Family stuff, of course, we have our queen bee, Sophie Lewis, who has made it her brand to be an Abolish the Family person. But there are plenty other people talking about Abolish the Family on the left. We can watch other people for other content that is not Sophie, right? With the degrowth stuff, there's one person. And so then you have to ask, like, is this really something the far left cares about? Because when the far left cares about something, they write books about it. They write manifestos about it. You see it showing up in the anarchist libraries. They make videos about it. They do presentations about it. They have whole conferences about it, yada, 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 yada. When the left cares about something, they talk about it endlessly. So if you want to know what they care about, look at what they're talking about. Look at what they're publishing about. If you want to know what they don't care about, ask yourself, do they actually ever talk about that thing?
Trump once again sought to capitalize on this event to intensify his campaign against immigrants, but his Reichstag fire strategy was already producing diminishing returns. It bears mentioning that the shooting would not have occurred if Trump had not deployed the National Guard to D.C. in the first place.
Wow.
She swallowed the spider to catch the fly. I don't know why she swallowed a fly.
So Antifa basically just blamed Trump for the National Guard shooting. They're saying, hey, listen, bro, if the National Guard weren't there in the first place, the shooting never would have happened. Duh. That's really considerate of human life, Antifa. Excellent.
She swallowed the spider. On November 29th, ICE attempted to carry out a major operation in New York City, only to be completely thwarted by popular resistance. People surrounded the ICE agents, blocked them, and escorted them out of the city. Rather than subduing the population, Trump's heavy-handed attempt to make federal agencies into a political weapon had inflamed them, drawing them out of despair and fear into passionate collective action.
See, and this is a really important point, and I think this is what they're going to build up to with this. The left is absolutely committed to anti-ICE activism. This is going to be one of their main things in 2026. I don't see them deviating from it at all. And the left is now getting very emboldened because, I mean, listen, the right wants to say the protests don't work. Why are they protesting? This is a waste of time. What are they accomplishing? The right makes all these fucking excuses. Do you want to know what the anti-ICE protesters have accomplished? They have now chased the Trump administration out of multiple cities. Do you want to know why there hasn't been mass deportations in the way that we were all promised, in the way that we all wanted? Because of the anti-ICE demonstrations. Not only are they doing protests, they're organizing within the communities to get everyone to warn everyone else when ICE is in the area and might be deporting people. They know how to identify ICE. They're blowing whistles to warn their neighbors that ICE are there. They're training people on how to keep ICE out of their buildings. They're training people on what to say if ICE shows up at your doorstep. They're training organizations to say to keep ICE out of the workplaces so ICE can't go into workplaces to deport people. Like this, they are highly successful. They've chased people out of New York. They've chased people out of Chicago. They've chased people out of Minneapolis. Like they have literally done this. They are using direct action and protest in order to not only basically throw enough sand in the gears of ICE that they're never going to get our mass deportations that we wanted, because the left is completely winning on this one. They have deployed a massive amount of anti-ICE propaganda all over the country. They are highly successful at this, to the point where they are literally winning the cities. ICE is leaving the cities. DHS is leaving the cities. They're not even attempting to do the deportations in some of these places anymore. And so I want people to understand that even though Trump controls the presidency, even though he controls the Congress, even though he controls the Supreme Court, in theory, even though he controls all these federal agencies, who's winning? The protesters are winning. The left is winning because they just kept showing up and they just kept organizing and they never stopped and they never slowed down and they were out there all the time and they did this month after month after month after month after month after month after month. And it has sucked up all of the resources. You know, do you guys understand why Trump wanted to send in the National Guard to Portland? Does anyone understand why Trump wanted to send in the National Guard to Portland? Hey, thanks, Ben Shaw, for becoming a YouTube channel member. I really appreciate that. An effectual insurrection over on Rumble with the $10 Rumble rant. Silly commies, no matter how violent they are, they never take responsibility. For fuck's sake, they think they're always right. So pretentious, and no matter how bad they act, they're always the victim. Thank you, Dr. K. Thank you, effectual insurrection on Rumble. I appreciate it. Do you guys want to know why Trump wanted to bring the National Guard into Portland? Because they wanted the National Guard to guard the ICE building. Has nothing to do with the counter-protester. They wanted the National Guard to guard the ICE building in Portland so that the ICE agents could actually go out and do their fucking jobs. Because right now in Portland, ICE can't go out and deport people. They can't go out and find people. They have to stand there and guard the building. They have to stay there and guard the flipping building because the left is out there all day, every day. And there may be some times when there are more protesters than others, and there's sometimes when there's like nothing going on. Okay, fine. But the left is out there like all the effing time. And because the left is out there all the time and there's always new things going on, ICE has to stay there to guard the building. The purpose of bringing the National Guard into Portland was to have the National Guard guard the flipping building so that ICE could actually go out and do their flipping jobs. And of course, that got denied by the courts, which means that ICE has to stay there and guard the buildings. And as long as ICE stay there guarding the buildings, the deportations aren't happening. So the left is winning just because they show up so consistently and they cause problems just because they're there. And the Trump administration is getting chased out of major cities because of it. Okay, here we go. The fight ahead. Finally, we got there.
Rather than subdue the fight ahead, on December 15th, news spread that in response to plummeting polls about anti-immigrant raids, federal agencies would be shifting to a more restrained strategy. That same day, Kash Patel's FBI claimed that—
Wait, what is this? This is yesterday, by the way. This is what they linked to. ICE Barbie forced to make major change to raids after humiliating polls. The Department of Homeland Security has quietly moved to tone down its immigration enforcement tactics after polling revealed the heavy-handed raids failed to impress the public. That's because the left is winning. Sweeping immigration raids carried out under Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, Commander-at-Large Gregory Brovino, will now be more focused following a new report from unnamed DHS officials. The shift comes after months of large-scale raids that were billed as targeting the worst of the worst, a claim that has unraveled as more and more reports have surfaced of ordinary U.S. citizens being scooped up by federal agents. This is leftist propaganda, guys. This is what leftists read. This is what they see. This is what they believe. Regardless of if it's true, it doesn't matter if it's true. This is what they believe. DHS sources said the changes mean agents will now have specific targets rather than simply joining sweeping raids in a given area, News Nation has reported. This is being reported on News Nation. This is not just being reported by the left. The reported changes come a few days after Homeland Security Ceci, blah, 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 da-da-da, whatever. Okay, so they're doing something to change what they're doing. Effectual insurrection with a $5 Rumble rant. Thank you so much, bro, for that. In my opinion, they're doing it to get our government agencies to act a certain way, to get a certain reaction that they plan for. But the more they do it, the more ammo for the appeal case for the National Guard to get approved. I mean, I don't think the National Guard's going to get approved, but I could be wrong about that. I hope I am. Anyway, back to this. And this is yesterday. So they're calling the Antifa case with the group an entrapment case. Well, that makes sense, actually.
That same day, Kash Patel's FBI claimed to have arrested 5 alleged members of an anti-capitalist, anti-government movement, 4 of whom were accused of participating in a bomb-making conspiracy. The criminal complaint bears the hallmarks of a classic entrapment case. The end of 2025 finds us at another turning of the tide. If federal agencies have yet to move with full force against a target other than immigrants, it is only because people have fought so hard to obstruct ICE. This drives home the true meaning of solidarity. The best way to protect ourselves tomorrow is to protect each other today. Trump and his henchmen would already be carrying out extrajudicial killings in our communities if they could. They may yet, having put the pieces in place to target anti-fascists, it is almost inevitable that federal agencies will follow through.
Oh, now they're okay. Check this out. They're saying, those leftists that just got arrested by the FBI. This has all the entrapments of being. This has all the hallmarks of being an entrapment case. By which they mean, and listen, they may be right about this, that the FBI actually infiltrated them to entrap them, and the FBI gave them the bomb making stuff, and the FBI encouraged them to make bombs. They could actually be right about that. I do actually believe the Turtle Island Liberation Front is a real leftist group. I believe those are real leftist activists. All of the propaganda looks completely legit to me. I went through their entire Instagram. I read everything they posted. Those are far leftists, but there could have absolutely been someone from the FBI that infiltrated that group to give them the bomb materials and encourage them to do it, and then arrested them when they did it. That both of those things can be true. It can be true that this is a real leftist group. It can also be true that the FBI entrapped them. But what the left is saying is essentially federal agencies are now acting against us. So the left is trying to paint basically a giant target on themselves. So the far left, this is Antifa, remember. Antifa is trying to paint a giant target on themselves to say all of the resources of the government are now trying to target us because of how effective we're being against their anti-ICE protests. So they're trying to, in some respects, build up paranoia in the far left, because the far left is hyper paranoid about being surveilled. And what that's going to do, they hope, I think what they're trying to do is elicit a greater kind of like aggression of the left to do more aggressive direct action, to engage in more direct action, because what they're going to say is the Trump administration, all these federal agencies are coming at us. We need to come at them. We can't be on the defense. We have to be on the offense. That's my guess about where this is going.
The criminal complaint bears the hallmarks of a classic entrapment case. The end of 2025 finds us at another turning of the tide. If federal agencies are having put the pieces in place to target anti-fascists, it is almost inevitable that federal agencies will follow through. Any FBI agent who wants to advance his career now has an incentive to set up an entrapment case, and more ambitious assaults are probably on the way as well. If these succeed in reducing people to silence, if the frame-ups play well to television audiences and turn public opinion against popular resistance, this will embolden not only the Trump regime, but also Democratic politicians who would happily be rid of their pesky rivals. We should respond to the next...
When they say pesky rivals, they mean Antifa. So Antifa is saying the Democrats believe they are pesky rivals.
We should respond to the next round of repression in ways that bring people together to experiment with new tactics, the same way that people have formed rapid response networks in response to ICE raids. This is not the first time
We should respond to the next round of repression in the ways that bring people together to experiment with new tactics, the same way that people have formed rapid response networks in response to ICE raids. Okay. So what the left has done is they have created a national network of organized communities, literally all over the country, that are responding to these ICE raids, that are warning people when ICE is in their communities, that are distributing information and literature to help people and all that stuff. They're saying, because the Trump administration is targeting us, this is a time for us to come together and get really creative about how we're handling this in a decentralized way to build up basically the ability to fend off the evil fascists that are trying to kill us. They literally said earlier that they're literally going to try to kill them.
This is not the first time, not even first time this century, that federal agencies have declared anarchists to be their number one domestic target. The FBI did the same thing in May 2005. Within 7 months, they had initiated Operation Backfire, one of the flagship cases of the Green Scare, alongside the SHAC 7 prosecution. Looking back 20 years, we can see that refusing to let our movements fracture under pressure is as crucial to our safety as any particular security culture practice.
So what they're saying is we have a roadmap for this. We know how to handle this. We cannot succumb to the pressure that the Trump administration is trying to exert on us. We have to become more comradely. We have to exist in solidarity. We have to help each other, support each other. If we can't turn our backs on each other. No one, they're hyper aware, and we saw this earlier this year too. Antifa is like hyper aware of trying to rein everyone in so no one stabs them in the back and goes to the cops. Like, you have to be good comrades. You have to have the back of the comrades, because how people support each other is as crucial as any particular thing we do not to be surveilled.
Looking back 20 years, if Trump's support continues to crumble, this may prevent him from targeting his adversaries in a systematic way, but it will not reduce the danger he poses. If the situation grows more precarious, there will be more Reichstag fires, more Charlottesvilles,
That would be horrible.
like Benjamin Netanyahu. He may instigate wars or worse as a means of evading his day of reckoning. Nonetheless, the only way out is through. Today, it is clear for all to see that there is no route to a better future that does not begin with building the capacity to resist the violence of the state. The elections, chiefly concerned with job security. Democratic politicians have sought to focus attention on the 2026 elections, even as Congress itself has been largely sidelined by the executive and judicial branches of government. The 2026 elections could be to Trump's second term what the Mueller investigation was to his first, a spectacle that distracts people from the urgent matter of building real power. Regardless of how people vote, the elections will only matter if the balance of power shifts against Trump both in the streets and inside the state.
So what they're saying is, because remember, guys, Antifa doesn't participate in elections. Antifa doesn't vote in elections. They don't believe in voting. They want to overthrow the system. They believe voting is reformism. What they're saying is, we don't give a flying fuck if the Democrats win. It doesn't actually matter if the Democrats win, because we need people in the streets that are resisting Trump. So Antifa is far more concerned about, are we able to build a mass resistance in the streets among the proletariat and the oppressed, than they are with any concern about how the midterm elections are going to go, because they believe that both parties are capitalist parties that support Trump.
Regardless of how, in 2022, our comrades in Turkey reported a similar dynamic under Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. For the past 10 years, there has always been an election on the horizon that people hope will deal a death blow to Erdogan. There have been no less than 6 of these elections, ranging from a referendum to presidential, parliamentary, and mayoral elections. Some of them were repeated until the correct result was delivered. Donald Trump has made it crystal clear that he will not leave power voluntarily. On October 23rd, Steve Bannon stated that there was a plan to arrange for him to serve a third term. Had there been no George Floyd uprising, Trump might well have succeeded in enlisting more elements of the state in his 2020 coup attempt. This time around, he has installed loyalists atop all the agencies that refused to support him then. It is possible that he...
Well, yes, generally speaking, I am more happy when I'm not being harassed and gang stalked every single day of my life by retard classical liberal Zionists that are basically doing the bidding of conservative Zionists and Jews. So yeah, the years that I spent getting harassed and gang stalked with the explicit goal of people trying to get me to kill myself, I was deeply unhappy. I was deeply depressed when that was happening. And now that that's not going on anymore and I can just be left alone to do my work, I am indeed much happier. Thank you to the Zionist classical liberals who set their sights on making my life a living, breathing hell for years. That was a really great experience.
It is possible that he might conclude this term with his administration even more fractured than last time, but only if we exert considerable pressure. If Trump will not leave power voluntarily, we have to evaluate our protest strategies accordingly. We must build the capacity to exert leverage in ways that militarized occupiers cannot easily counter. The Democrats who have argued that Trump's National Guard deployments were not necessary on the grounds that the demonstrators were not being unruly enough to warrant them are thinking in a way that can only serve Trump. Remaining sedate and well-behaved will only open the way for fascism. The question is not how to keep crowds under control, but how to become impossible to control.
So Kim Iverson was just asking me about this earlier today. Kim Iverson, I'm going to send her this. I'm going to be like, Kim, I told you so. Kim Iverson asked me earlier today in the interview, and again, I highly recommend everyone watch it. I'm going to make sure I clip it. I'm putting it on the Substack and stuff like that, but just go to Kim's Rumble channel and watch it. It was a really great chat. She said to me during it, Karlyn, do you really think that they're going to commit violence? And I said to her, Kim, they're talking in all of their propaganda about how they're done with nonviolent protests. They don't believe the nonviolent protest is effective. I've seen this across multiple groups on the far left. They are absolutely setting the stage to try to get people comfortable with the idea of engaging in violence. So let's read this now with that context. The Democrats who have argued that Trump's National Guard deployment were not necessarily on the grounds that demonstrators were not being unruly enough to warrant them are thinking in a way that can only serve Trump. What Antifa is saying is the Democrats are saying the only reason the National Guard shouldn't be deployed is that we haven't been violent and destructive enough. And by the Democrats saying that, they're playing right into Trump's hands. Why? Because Antifa wants to be more violent and destructive. They want to elicit violence. That's what they're trying to do with this. Remaining sedate and well-behaved will only open the way for fascism. The question is not how to keep crowds under control, but how to become impossible to control. They are talking about encouraging the far left and activists in general to get purposefully violent and purposefully destructive. They are saying, we actually don't want to engage in nonviolent protest, you idiots. We want people to be misbehaved. We don't want people to be sedate when they're fighting fascism. We don't want the crowds to be controllable. And they're saying, but by the Democrats saying that National Guard should only be called in if the crowds are uncontrollable, they're saying that, listen, we're going to be uncontrollable. The National Guard shouldn't be called in either way because it's a police state and we don't believe in that, blah, 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 blah. But that's why they're saying the Democrats are literally playing into the hands of Trump by asserting that Antifa should be nonviolent. Antifa doesn't want to be nonviolent. They've never wanted to be nonviolent. And this is a call for getting more aggressive and going outside of the bounds of the law. They do not believe in nonviolent protest as an effective tactic.
The question is not how to keep crowds under control, but how to become impossible to control. Even those who only wish for electoral victories must understand the importance of grassroots unrest, as we saw in 2020. In op-ed after op-ed, centrists expressed concern that the street confrontations of May and June 2020 might swing the election to Donald Trump. In fact, Democratic voter registration in June 2020 increased by 50%. While Republican voter registration grew by just 6% that month. Those who cited the protests as a factor in determining how they cast their ballots in 2020 voted for Joe Biden by a margin of fully 7%. In other words, the George Floyd revolt helped get Biden elected. And remember, the George Floyd revolt did not begin with a voter registration drive. It got off the ground with the burning of a police precinct.
All right, this is important for people to understand what they're saying here. Now, Antifa is not like the Democrats. They've already made that very clear. But they're saying that the argument against using violent protest or the argument against the argument against using more violent, aggressive protest is that you will get Republicans elected. You will get more fascists elected if you use violent and aggressive and destructive forms of protest. And Antifa's saying, listen, that's not even true, because when we did those massive riots in 2020, that actually led to more Democrats registering Democrat and voting for Biden. And remember, our Antifa protests or the BLM protests in 2020 started with the burning of a police precinct. It started with literally burning down a building. So they're trying to tell people, they're like, you think this is going to backfire because probably the arguments that they're getting, because remember, these are people that exist in the real world. They're having these conversations in the real world. And so probably the arguments that they're getting when they're having these discussions is people are going, if we get more violent and if we get more aggressive and we start burning things again, is that going to help Trump? Because they view Trump as like the ultimate fascist. Okay. So if we do these things, is this going to backfire against us? And what they're trying to say is they're trying to get rid of that grievance. They're trying to say, listen, we might not like Biden, but the facts say that if we do this, it's actually going to hurt Trump and it's going to hurt the Republicans, and it's not going to backfire on us. It's not going to result in more Republicans being elected. It's not going to result in Trump getting a third term. It's actually going to work out in our favor based on what happened in 2020. Does everyone understand this? They're not advocating for Joe Biden. They're not advocating for the Democrats. They're trying to mitigate an objection probably that they're getting in their community to say, if we get more violent and we get more destructive and we start lighting things on fire, is that going to backfire on us? And they're trying to say, no, it's not actually going to backfire on us at all in any way.
It got off the ground with the burning of a police precinct. According to a Newsweek poll, 54% of those surveyed believe that this was justified. If that had not occurred, the movement would not have succeeded in pushing the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and others into public discourse, and there would have been no electoral gain for the Democratic Party. There is no way to create powerful movements without taking real action against the causes of injustice. Even if Trump is removed from power, whether by election or other means, authoritarianism is here to stay. Now that this is the ascendant model, we see politicians from across the political spectrum cozying up to the reigning despots, not just Eric Adams, but even Zohar Mamdani, or taking pages from their playbook like Gavin Newsom. The Republican Party has been reinvented as the private vehicle of a single man. The Democrats, who work so hard to brand themselves as sanctimonious rule followers, are hastening to emulate their rivals. If or when Trump loses control, a power struggle will ensue, and the winner could be an autocrat like himself from either political party.
Autocrats can come from either political party, including the Democrats.
This is yet another reason why. If we want to see real social change, we have to build grassroots movements that are not dependent upon representational politics, that can act effectively regardless of who holds office.
So Antifa is telling us we're not relying on elections to get anything done here. Our goal is to build a grassroots movement that is not dependent upon representational politics, that can act effectively regardless of whether it's Democrats or Republicans, because they're trying to set the scene for the 2026 midterms, essentially. And they're trying to say, listen, man, our goal is not to work within the Democratic Party. Our goal is not to work with these politicians. Our goal is to build a grassroots movement in the streets that exists regardless of who is in political power. That is what they're saying. Hans, thank you for the 5 gifted channel memberships. I really appreciate it. Congratulations to everyone who got a channel membership from Hans. Thanks, bro. Massive W. Appreciate the support.
This is yet another reason why. We must make it clear to everyone that even the most well-meaning Democrats do not represent a real alternative.
Oh!
However, they might update their campaign platforms. The Biden administration drove millions of people to vote for Trump because the Democrats failed to address the problems that capitalism is creating. If we manage to force Trump from power, once more only to repeat the cycle yet again, the next wave of fascism will be more horrific than we can possibly imagine.
So they're trying to remind people, they're like, listen, the Democrats are not our friends, okay? The Democrats are a capitalist party. They do not represent a real alternative. Like, they're basically just a different problem.
The movement against Trump must dig deeper and look further than electoral politics. We must center practices that put power in the hands of ordinary people, pursuing a strategy that outflanks and delegitimizes party politics, along with capitalism and the violence that sustains it.
So now they're saying they want to completely delegitimize party politics along with capitalism, because capitalism supports the two parties, and the violence that sustains it. They're saying capitalism is literally violence.
We have to dismantle the mechanisms that produce billionaires in the first place.
Capitalism.
We have already caught glimpses of what that can look like. The problem is much bigger than a single politician, party, or government. The same forces that brought Trump to power in the United States are bringing similar figures to power in Argentina, Chile, Europe. We are enduring the dying throes of a centuries-old social order that threatens to destroy us along with itself. We will only survive if we can solve the immediate problems we face in ways that enable us all to build a new way of life together. This is the secret promise of the rapid response networks. Community members on ICE watch duty by a school. Holy shit. So I'm betting this is in Los Angeles.
They literally have people sitting outside public schools to warn people just in case ICE shows up at the public school. They have tents, they have drinks, they're just hanging out all day guarding the school in case ICE shows up. Bro.
Community members, how to escape the Trump era. How do you topple an autocrat? First, identify segments of his support base that are not permanently committed to his reign, but whose backing is essential to keeping him in power. Analyze their interests. Identify what is more important to them than maintaining his reign. Think about their vulnerabilities. Then identify a form of activity that could put that segment of the autocrat supporters in a situation in which they will prefer to withdraw their support. Engage in that activity whatever it takes. Repeat as needed until enough sectors of society shift their commitments.
Okay, so what they're saying is we are going to go after anyone and any organization that supports the Trump administration in any way. And we are going to make their lives very, very, very difficult until they withdraw their support from the Trump administration. This is going to come in the form of protesting. This is going to come in the form of strikes. Something that people may think of that happened relatively recently. Did you guys see that all of those leftists showed up at a Home Depot and they all bought like ice scrapers? They bought like ice scrapers that were like $1 or something like that. So they all showed up, they all bought the same cheapo thing, and then they all got in line to return the thing that they just bought. Now, what does that actually do? Well, is that practically a big deal? I guess not, but it makes life very difficult for Home Depot because Home Depot is perceived by the left as supporting the Trump administration because Home Depot won't tell ICE that they can't deport their employees, they can't come into their establishment and stuff like that. And so because Home Depot cooperates with ICE, that's why they showed up to buy all those ice scrapers and then return them just to cause problems at Home Depot. It makes their life very difficult. It prevents them from effectively serving their customers because people have to wait in long lines, et cetera, et cetera. So people think that's a small thing, but that is part of this effort to say, listen, we are going to fuck with you. We are going to fuck with your businesses. We are not going to stop. We are going to be relentless in this pursuit. We are going to do whatever it takes. And when we find a tactic that works, we're going to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. And we're going to scale it and we're going to make it bigger and we're going to do more of it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Repeat as needed until enough sectors of society shift their commitments. Something like this occurred in summer 2020, when Trump concentrated federal agents in Portland in an effort to show his supporters in the capitalist class that he could successfully impose order and preserve business as usual. Essentially, he was attempting to provide proof of concept to potential investors in a coup. Because he failed, most major capitalists did not support his 2021 coup attempt. The credit for this goes to the crowds who showed up every night, whose courageous efforts not only defeated the federal agents, but convinced elements of the ruling class that Trump's efforts to remain in power would only endanger them. The anti-Tesla protests of spring 2025 demonstrated the effectiveness of this strategy.
By the way, you guys know they're still protesting Tesla, right? I know it's not being reported in conservative media anymore, but like the left has been protesting Tesla every single weekend, basically all year long.
Facing a unified front of fascist demagogues, Christian nationalists, and tech billionaires, the protesters applied pressure to Tesla dealerships and achieved startling results within 3 months. Coincidentally or not, the fracturing of the alliance between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, one of the most powerful participants in Trump's coalition, took place immediately before the June 2025 uprising in Los Angeles, distracting Trump at a crucial juncture.
Yes, guys, the left is still protesting Tesla. The left is also protesting Avuelo Airlines for helping with the deportations. The left is also protesting Target. The left is also protesting Home Depot. I believe they're protesting Airbnb. They're protesting Starbucks. The left is protesting all sorts of companies right now.
distracting Trump at a crucial. If we do not wish to live under the autocratic rule of Donald Trump or his successors for the rest of our lives, we will have to use direct action to break up his support base, compelling those who have remained passive to take a stand against him.
We're going to use direct action to break up Trump's support base to encourage people to, not support him anymore.
And then we will have get to the root problem, opportunities. With the old institutions in disarray and faith in politicians at an all-time low, this would actually be an auspicious time for a powerful liberation movement if only such a movement existed. The chief problem is not the strength of our enemies, but our own weakness.
What do they mean when they say powerful liberation movement? Pop quiz for the chat. When they say this would actually be an auspicious time for a powerful liberation movement, what do they mean? I know there's a little bit of a delay between when I say something and when you guys hear it and when you guys chat in. When they say this would be an auspicious time for a powerful liberation movement. Well, liberation means overthrowing the U.S. government. That's what they mean by liberation. They're talking about a revolution. They're talking about, and I've been talking about this for a while, they are trying to light the spark that is going to turn into a massive shit show fire of a proletarian revolution. They are absolutely convinced. This is why it's important to understand the full mise-en-scène of this entire document that we just spent a couple hours working our way through, because they're laying the entire groundwork to say late-stage capitalism is pissing everyone off, and this is the auspicious time when we can literally spark a revolution that will grow to overthrow the capitalist oppressors. They believe we are in late-stage capitalism. They believe the revolution could happen at any moment. And now they're saying, hey, this might actually be a good time to go the extra mile and try to do some stuff.
The chief problem is not the strength of our enemies, but our own weakness.
We are only
Countless
standing in our
people on
own
the
way.
receiving end of Trump's policies experience a daily emotional reality of rage restrained by terror, in which the fear of state violence mounts at a pace that only barely keeps up with their fears for the future. Should cracks appear in Trump's control, for example, if a movement emerges that can consistently outmaneuver his forces, it could unleash a tremendous amount of pent-up energy. Whoever can bring people together on that basis will open a path that millions will rush to tread. There will be no returning to Biden's America.
Wow.
The destruction that Elon Musk and Donald Trump have wrought cannot be undone, but they have showed millions of people how urgently real change is needed in the wreckage that they have created. It should be easy to make the case that our institutions of memory and care should never be at the mercy of a few narcissists. Everyone should be able to recognize that the legal system was only a few appointments away from tyranny all along, that the entire political system has always functioned to keep most people at a distance from their own agency. If nothing else, the lines are drawn clearly now. The far right can no longer pretend to oppose the billionaires who finance them. The billionaires can no longer pretend to be creating prosperity for all. The Zionists who threw their lot in with the Heritage Foundation can no longer pretend to represent resistance to fascism. Who can still pretend that Silicon Valley deepens our social ties, that artificial intelligence makes us more creative, that cryptocurrency enriches us? Those who made excuses for IC and the police in 2020 must now see them for what they are, a reserve army waiting to serve any despot, just as they must see that borders are not lines between communities, but open wounds within them. As we brace for the worst, we should also prepare proactively to bring about a best-case scenario. As terrifying as the situation is, if we survive, we will arrive in a different world. Right now, in the midst of battle,
as we brace for the worst, which means they're being targeted by the evil fascist, we should also prepare proactively to bring about a best-case scenario. They're saying we need to prepare for the revolution. The revolution is the best-case scenario.
As we brace for the worst, we should also prepare proactively to bring about a best-case scenario. As terrifying as the situation is, if we survive, we will arrive in a different world. Right now, in the midst of battle, let's identify what will take to get there, popularize our proposals, and start to realize them together.
Wow.
Demonstrators blocking a highway in Los Angeles. It's you against the billionaires. At their disposal, they have all the wealth and power of the most formidable empire in the history of the solar system. All you have going for you is your own ingenuity, the solidarity of your comrades, and the desperation of millions like you. The billionaires succeed by concentrating power in their own hands at everyone else's expense. For you to succeed, you must demonstrate ways that everyone can become more powerful. Two principles confront each other in this contest. On one side, individual aggrandizement at the expense of all living things. On the other, the potential of the individual to increase the self-determination of all human beings.
Okay, that was a quote. What is this? This is just a bunch of footnotes. Okay, so that's basically the end. Okay, so what they're saying is, this is kind of like a really vague call to action, but it is definitely a call to action. What they're basically saying is they're doubling down on the ICE stuff because it's highly effective. They want to go right directly at any organization in business supporting Donald Trump in any way. So we can expect to see more protests, more demonstrations, all that stuff. They are going to be using what they're doing with ICE as a model for inspiration on how to tackle other things the Trump administration is doing. And what they're saying is, listen, man, we need to start preparing for the revolution. Like they're actively targeting anti-fascists. They're actively targeting us. And because they're actively targeting us, we need to actively prepare to be more aggressive. They have explicit calls to engage in violence in this. They're saying explicitly that they don't believe that the Democratic Party is going to save them. They don't believe that the Democratic Party are even an ideal solution to this. They don't believe in elections. They don't care if the Democrats get elected. They're talking about building a movement that is independent from whoever is politically in office. And that is what makes them so dangerous. So while they're being vague in their recommendations so far, the marching orders that have been delivered to the far left is, right now, in the midst of battle, let's identify what it will take to get there, to the revolution, to the best case scenario, popularize our proposals, and start to realize them together. So what the far left is doing, it's such an academic approach, honestly. What they're doing is they're saying, guys, start coming up with some ideas. Everyone needs to start coming up with some ideas. Everyone needs to start circulating their ideas in the ecosystem. Because remember, the far left doesn't have a hierarchy. They do not have someone saying, ha, 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 here is what we are going to do. And then it bleeds down. That's not what they do. They circulate ideas from the ground up. So it's the people going out and talking to other people about their ideas and selling their ideas and getting people to voluntarily agree to their ideas. And then the more people you get to agree to your ideas, the more popular your idea gets. And then it ends up on Crime Think. And then everyone else is like, hey, that's a really good idea for reason X, Y, B, and Z. Does everyone understand how this works? So it's not an explicit call to action to say, like, here's explicitly what they're going to do next. They're basically like putting out feelers into the ecosystem, which honestly is more scary to me, because it's like, they're kind of saying, it's like, they're saying, we're going to take this slow. We're going to be pragmatic about this. We're going to start everyone come to the table. Let's get creative in our ideas. Think about it like a business meeting. They're saying, everyone come to the table. We need creative solutions to this problem. They're literally targeting us. They're literally trying to kill us. Everyone come with some ideas, and we're going to start having discussions about those ideas. And then the best ideas are going to percolate up, and then they will end up on Crime Think. And when they end up on Crime Think, we will talk about them. So that is the strategy, and that is what I see happening. I think they're going to double down on all the anti-ICE stuff. I think they're going to double down on the direct action stuff against any businesses or any entity that is supporting the Trump administration. And I think they're going to take their learnings from the past year and all the anti-ICE demonstrations that they've done, and I think they're going to apply them in other ways moving forward, and they're trying to figure out exactly what those ways are. That's what's going on. That is the Antifa update, guys. For people who maybe came in partway through, we are literally reading the Antifa planning document. It's called At the Turning of the Tide, How to Fight Our Way Out of the Trump Era. This was just published on Antifa's publishing arm, Crime Think, a couple hours ago. And now you guys have done the full read of it. So much more than May Day 2028. Oh yeah. May Day 2028 is 2.5 years away. That's a long time. Now they're going to prepare for that too, but we're going to see a lot of practice strikes where they're obviously going to do something on May 1st, 2026. We obviously have to have that on our radar, but they're going to do a lot of stuff leading up to that. But that's not the only thing they're working on. I think the anti-ICE stuff is only going to get more violent. I think we can expect to see more violence directed towards ICE, probably more like shootings and stuff like that at ICE facilities. Maybe even hitting people with their cars. I don't know. But I think we're only going to see them get more emboldened as kind of like they're winning. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. On the ICE stuff, they're winning. They have chased ICE out of like multiple cities. So something I like to ask of these people is what happens after the revolution. I mean, they talk about this all the time. They want a world without money. They want a world without the police. They want a world without banks. They want a world without prisons. They want a world where all resources belong to everyone. They want a world without private property ownership, no landlords, no land ownership, no home ownership, no business ownership, no parental rights over your kids. I've done multiple videos about this, so I would refer you to any one of those. I've written Substacks about this. So that's what I would refer you to. Well, then where have you been, bro? They've shot up multiple ICE facilities. Does conservative media not report on this? They've shot up multiple ICE facilities in the last several months. If you don't work, you don't eat. Listen. Go watch I'm not going to go through the whole thing right now. I've been streaming for 3 hours. I'm losing my voice. Just go watch the other videos that I've done on this. If you really want the answer to the question, go watch literally any of the other videos I've made on this. Go to the Substack. Watch them there. Whatever. Anyway, guys, speaking of the Substack, if you want to support the work I'm doing, head over to my Substack, Karlyn, Karlyn.substack.com. Sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year. Ain't no one else taking the time to walk you through these Antifa documents. Ain't no one else reporting on them the day they literally get posted. You only get that content here, guys. I'm the only one doing this type of work and spending all this time breaking it down for you guys. I need to go take a break now because I'm coming back in an hour to do a show with Jennifer about spirituality. I don't even know what we're talking about tonight, but I'm sure it's going to be good. So come back in an hour if you want to talk about something else. I'm going to go grab some dinner, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. Hope you enjoyed the show. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you here?
That's difficult to answer.
How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.